Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled meeting to order at 7 p.m. here on April 11th, the night before election night. Always a big night to call a meeting to order. Just kidding with you there. Commissioner Maison is running just a couple minutes late. He'll be here shortly. He'll just slide right in. I have no changes, additions, or amendments to make to the agenda that was published. So with that, I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion floor from the dais? Does the public have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Newberry, help me invite Pastor Ray Scott. He's from Newberry First Baptist Church. He's our interim pastor for a little while over there, and he's agreed to come and give tonight's invocation. If you would please, as you already have, rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Scott, thank you for coming here tonight, sir.
Father, we thank you for this place that you've placed us in, for the privilege of living here and working here and playing here and worshiping here. And we just ask that you would give these men before us here this morning wisdom and knowledge, and Father, that you would guide and direct every decision they make. We place them into your hands in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Scott. All right, we have a couple of presentations tonight. First one is our candidate introductions, but they are not here tonight. Is that right?
Go.
One candidate, our incumbent is. So let's start with the incumbent. Commissioner Farnsworth, you want to introduce yourself? And then if nobody else shows up before they get here, then we'll just slide right on.
Sure.
All right.
My name is Monty Farnsworth, and I am the incumbent for Group 3. I just want to say that, it's been a pleasure being on the commission all these years, and I hope to continue. I hope the citizens of Newberry will find it in their heart to vote for me tomorrow. I believe I am the most qualified of all the candidates. I've had the most experience and knowledge as to what's going on within the city. I would also like to say I've not taken any kind of donations from any kind of special interest groups or anything like that. I fund my own campaign. I don't want to be beholden to any other person or group or corporation or anything of that nature. So, but I hope you find it in your heart to come out and vote for me tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 7 p.m. at the municipal building. That's the only voting booth we have tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and move right on to the AMI Day recap. Dallas, you going to lead us through that? Fantastic day this weekend. Do we get to keep this prop? I want to bring it to my classroom.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Those are our meters we own.
Oh, okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, when we embarked on our AMI journey, it was very clear from the City Commission that customers were the focus and customer engagement was the expectation. So so over the weekend we had AMI Day where we invited all of our customers to come get a presentation from our AMI vendor, talk to our city staff about what AMI can do for them, to see the meters we're going to be putting into their homes, and to really just learn about AMI. So with us tonight, we have Griff Mashinsky from Census, who's going to give a brief presentation, kind of a pared down version of what we presented at AMI. Then we're going to show you one of the videos that we've produced. That's a how-to video that we're going to use to educate our customers, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Griff.
Come on up, Mr. Mashinsky. We appreciate all your work you did on Saturday as well as being here tonight. You've been spending a lot of time in Newberry.
Yes, sir.
Talking about some exciting things.
It was a beautiful day on Saturday, so appreciate you having us, and good to be back. So as Dallas mentioned, just kind of recapping what we did on Saturday, our focus was to the public, really more educational focused on making sure they understood, what is AMI and what are the tools, and most importantly, what's the biggest impact that they're going to see out of it. So we kind of gave them an overview, defining what AMI is, the acronym of Advanced Metering Infrastructure, but boiled it down to it's really about smart technology. It's a smart utility network. We talked through how these sorts of tools help utilities deliver better services, deliver on better resource planning, operational efficiencies, and a lot of focus on how it enhances the staff's customer service capabilities, and of course the improved sustainability of the resources. So we illustrated how by implementing the Sensus FlexNet system that now the city's positioned to communicate better, measure smarter, and analyze all of this data a whole lot easier. So talking to your customer base, we emphasized that really this is about them. This is giving them a lot more easy information, or easier access to a whole lot more information at a much greater detail than they've ever had access to before. Using that information to better manage their water, their energy usage, using those to target goals and to hopefully be able to create new habits, budgeting within their means and or reducing usage and being more environmentally conscious. Now being able to receive alerts and notifications as events happen, either with their own specific property or more system-wide. Again, talked a lot about the enhanced customer services that Tammy's team is going to have now, and they're very excited to be rolling out. City's now going to have the opportunity for remote turn on and turn off solutions, primarily on the electric side, but where they choose, that's also a feature enabled on the water side as well. And of course, talking through how from the city's staff vantage point, that they'll have quicker insight to be able to be proactive with the system, be able to respond in areas of concerns or alerting your customers for potential problems. We gave a great example. This is a real story of a few years back up in the Tuscaloosa area when those you probably remember the tornadoes, exactly, that went roaring through there. Fortunately, the power utility up there, Alabama Power, uses this system, and this gives a great illustration of how they used it in a crisis. All of those little red dots on there, that represents an electric meter that lost power as the storm was going. So it actually painted the picture of the tornado track dead on, live in real time. Because it's such a resilient, hardened system, it didn't go, the smart utility network itself never went down. So they had visibility. They were able to be planning their response as it was happening, understanding where the problems are, what the problems were, so that when it was safe, they could deploy their resources to go out and fix it. Then we translated that to, well, let's shrink that down a little bit because we're not dealing with tornadoes every day, fortunately, but power outages happen, and for all sorts of different reasons. So this is a graphic that we explained to them how it could affect them in everyday life. So this is an example of just a normal power outage on a small area in a town. We talked about how the electric meters, they have a feature that they report in when they've lost power. We were set up to actually show that. We could turn these pretty lights on and off and demonstrate that. But basically just talking through how the system reports on itself over a 10-minute period. This example that we displayed, it actually was showing that within 4 minutes, 345 out of 358 power meters had already told that utility they'd lost power, and that beat the very first customer call by a full minute and 9 seconds. So by the time that, 5 minutes later, when their first calls started coming in from their customer, they were saying, yep, we're aware of it. We have a very, it's a very localized event, or, it could be a large event. But having that insight to know what happened really gave them a lot of new credibility with their customers as well, to say, we're on top of it. In fact, we've already got crews on the way. We hope to have it restored very quickly. An hour later, same screenshot, every single one of those except one had gone back to green and had restored its power. The one was an example where a tree limb had actually fallen and clipped off the power line to the home, so that just took a little bit longer, but all of the rest of the customers have been restored. So again, this gave the utility the visibility to an event as it was happening. They were able to respond quickly, accurately, and then verify that the repairs that they made were successful and power was restored. Yes, sir.
When you were talking about the Alabama event,
Yes, sir.
did they actually use it to proactively alert the customers, like on a tracking basis, and say, look, the trajectory shows that it's going right towards you within a 2-mile or 3-mile radius, or was this proactive in the response, like after the fact?
So I don't have direct knowledge of it, but I wouldn't think that the utility would have been, that event happens so fast that they're not feeding that into, the weather alert systems and things like that. But being proactive more as their responsibilities over the power grid and understanding, where do they need to go, when it's safe to go out. And we've seen examples like that across the country in all sorts of different emergency type of situations. Great question, though. Thank you. So then we really drilled into the customer portal experience, because this is really the hands-on tool that the customers themselves will now have, or very soon have at their disposal. So we talked through a lot of different use case scenarios. Why should I use this? Or why do we hear from all of our utilities across the country the success they have with the program of what their customers' feedback is? It's all about having useful information, 100% self-service oriented, being alerted as to self-governed thresholds and things that they're able to set up. So from there, we're going to jump in and insert a little 4-minute video. This actually talks through and presents the customer portal itself. I did a much more in detailed kind of tutoring session on it on Saturday, but this is something that is going to be continually available. I think it's actually going to be posted to the city's website for anybody to access whenever. So I'll be quiet for a second while we show this.
The City of Newberry has an AMI system which will help you better understand and control how you use your through your online utility portal. But first, what is AMI? AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. The system relies on smart utility meters that communicate the consumption information in almost real time and will be accessible to you through your online portal. To learn more about the City of Newberry's AMI upgrade and see frequently asked questions, visit newberryfl.gov/AMI. To log in and view your account or to pay your bill, you will need to use your 4-digit utility account number and your address number. Your account number can be found on your utility bill. Your default password is your mailing address number. Once you have logged in, you can change your password. After successfully logging in, you'll see several menu options. To pay your bill, select the Service Billing and Payments option. To view your utility usage and set up usage alerts, select AMI Dashboard. Next, click on Go to AMI Dashboard. Here you can view your water or electric usage. Click on the Customer drop-down in the navigation bar to toggle between your electricity or water usage information. Let's take a look at what we see on the dashboard. First, you'll see your billing cycle usage and billing cycle data. These show you how much electricity or water you used during the current and previous billing cycles. Next is your billing cycle threshold. By pressing Configure, you can set daily, multi-day, billing cycle, and vacation thresholds for your usage. Our last two sections are alerts and notifications. If your usage passes your threshold or the city sends you any notifications, you'll find them here. The usage details allow you to see your daily usage. You can change the view from the past 24 hours to the previous 12 months. Notice that you are also given daily rainfall and weather data to better understand your utility usage. The next tab, Meters, shows you the number of your electricity or water meter, the location, the last time a reading was taken, and recaps your usage. Don't forget to set up your alerts, especially when you are going on vacation or during the summer when your sprinkler system is on. Under Settings, you'll find a few options for setting up alerts. Usage Alerts allows you to configure daily, multi-day, billing cycle, and vacation usage thresholds. If your usage exceeds your set threshold within the time period, you'll receive an alert. You can use vacation alerts when you're away from home, and multi-day alerts to monitor sprinkler systems during the summer. The Alert Recipients tab will allow you to add email addresses or cell phone numbers of those individuals you want to receive these alert messages. For example, you can set yourself up as a text message recipient to monitor your grandparents' usage. Under User Settings, you can manage your contact information and add new accounts. To change your password, go to the main menu. Password changes take up to 24 hours to take effect. For questions or help navigating the portal, click Support in the top right. Here you can submit a request or access our live help chat. You can always call our offices at 352-472-2161, extension 1, for assistance with the updated portal. We are thrilled to utilize the latest technology for you to maximize the use of your portal, especially the powerful AMI dashboard, as you become a more utility-conscious Newberian.
All right. So we've got a very good response from the people that were in attendance, and overall it was a great event. Just to also kind of update you on where we're at with the project up to this point. So what has happened so far? As you're well aware, for the last several months we've been working diligently with the city team and the consultants. We've gotten the network fully deployed and tested. And we've gotten all of the necessary software systems integrated and working together. Our focus on that, of course, is to work out all of the kinks that are normal in projects like this, so that those kinks don't happen when we do the mass rollout to the general public. Last couple months, we've actually been operating in a live pilot scenario using real-world meters and water and electric meters on city-owned properties. Which enables the staff to be working with real-world situations. They're looking at live data, interacting with the system, enabling us to use the system to be fully trained, again, so that they are comfortable working with the tools prior to having to face questions from your customers as it's going out. What's happening next? In my book, it's the final and most exciting stage. This is where we start the actual meter change-out process. Those are going to be scheduled. We're kicking that off first or second week of May, I believe, is the plan. So that long-awaited step is finally here. Who's going to be out? We certainly educated the folks there in intents, what to look for. Who's going to be out there? So again, it's one of our installation partners, Utility Partners of America, is a contractor that this is their business. This is what they do year-round across the country. We've worked with them on many projects, and so they will, of course, be easily identifiable out in the field. Their vehicles will have the sticker with both their logo and the new City of Newberry logo on it. All employees are well identified with badges. They're, of course, security screened and checked out. And they'll be wearing all of the appropriate safety gear, so they're very visible when they're out on the street changing out electric meters and water meters. As far as the workflow process, all the scheduling of all these meter changeouts is being done in conjunction with UPA and the city to make sure that we're all in full agreement of who's getting their meters when. We emphasize that all meters are being replaced as a part of this project. And the expectation is to have all of this installation process completed by the end of September. Last but not least, just generally pointing them to what to do with general questions or concerns. The city's now got a landing page, as you saw in the video, for this project. And we also reminded them that the UPA will also have a customer support number for specific questions there. So with that, that's a real brief summary of a good 4 hours of time spent Saturday afternoon. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Well, first, we really appreciate coming down. Saturday was great. The municipal building, the snacks, the presentations, the demos, the props, the videos, everything that you guys did. You really pulled out all the stops, and we appreciate it, because from the beginning we have talked about, this sounds great, but how do we get the information to the residents so that they can utilize the benefits? We know that we can utilize the benefits on our end. So I think Saturday went a long way towards that. The videos are going to be very helpful as well. So thank you also for being here tonight. Does the Commissioner have any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
First, I want to say thanks for finally getting to this point after all these years. I'm glad to finally see it coming to fruition. Whenever these meters are switched out, is there any kind of door hanging or anything that are placed on doors so that people know that they've been switched out, and they have a website they can go to learn about them and stuff?
Yes. So there's a before and after answer to that. There's actually a notification sent out ahead of time as a mailer, as a postcard, because not everybody's getting it all in the same week. It's going to be staggered across the customer base. So they'll get a notification that they are on the schedule to be changed out soon. It's not a specific appointment. There's no appointment setting required. The actual, that was one of the questions that we got from a citizen was, do I need to be home for this or whatnot? So of course we emphasize it's a very quick process. Nobody needs to be there. The installers are instructed to go in and at least announce their presence, knock on the door, just to let you know, hey, power's gonna be out for a couple minutes while we switch the electric meter. We've got to turn the water off for a couple minutes while we swap out the water meter. Once they're done, then yes, they leave a door hanger saying, congratulations, you've got a new AMI meter, you're ready to go. And then there's also a follow-up billing insert that will also come saying, you've now received your AMI-enabled meter. You're welcome to log in and start enjoying the customer portal experience as well.
Commissioner May, one more?
Someone like me that works from home, just hanging around working and have my computer go out during the work. I mean, am I going to be notified when this is going to happen so that, a postcard in the mail is not going to do it for me?
I think they'll knock on the door.
They'll knock on the door and just let me know.
And then that was a response that Dallas actually fielded Saturday was, if the change out is going to cause a potential issue, please call the customer service line and they will work as best as they can to, if they need to schedule around a particular event for a particular reason, they're more than happy to take those questions and concerns and work them on an individual basis.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
Commissioner Maison?
What was the turnout?
We did 2 different live sessions, and I would say the room was about quarter filled each time. We had a good presence from city staff there to support. We had a number of citizens and a couple other utilities showed up as well with some interest.
Who all showed up from the staff?
Everybody that was told to, I'm sure.
Jamie, you were there?
Yes, sir, he was.
All right. Do we have any feedback? Any negative feedback?
No, actually. This is in in my experience, I've been with the company now 9 years. This is actually the first time I've done a public-facing event like this. Usually it's much more geared towards the utility and staff. So, we're always prepared, and we expect the worst and hope for the best, and we got the best. So, it was all positive feedback for sure.
And you did mention that you started with the city businesses with the AMI. Why, and why not with certain residents?
The why to use city-owned meters is, that's a very common selection so that you're not having specific impact on direct customers. You can get the exact same experience because there's really no difference between an electric meter on this building versus your home, but that way they're non-billable meters to public billable. Of course, you're accounting for them internally, but being able to see that information and work with live examples versus potentially upsetting a customer. Yeah,
We wanted.
it's a free test drive. That's right. Yeah,
Get that jacket.
Men's Warehouse.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, I thought both sessions were well attended, lots of positive feedback, great conversations. Still a lot of questions about what is this, so we still have a long way to go. But again, if nobody learns anything about AMI, then you'll just continue to get your bill. But on our end, we'll be a whole lot more efficient. But it will be a powerful tool to help you save some money on your utility bill if you want to take some time to learn about it. So, any last question, Commissioner Martin?
Did we live stream that on Saturday or record it? Is there anywhere?
Not live stream, but there was a video crew. A video was being taken, and I'm sure is being edited and put together.
Gotcha.
So.
Cool.
And there were 2 residents who were live streaming it, so I'm not sure. I'll try to remember their name, but the video will be much more succinct. All right. Any last comments, questions? What's that?
Can we get the email of the video so we can share?
Oh, the link will come out to us. It'll go on the website. It'll go on the city, so we'll be able to. And there's. Say that again. NewberryFL.gov/AMI. I got it one take, just like my commercial. Yeah. Okay, but I think there's multiple commercials that will be filtering out. So, any last? All right, thank you, sir.
I'd just like to take the last opportunity to once again thank you. We're excited to be moving forward and look forward to a long, successful partnership working with the city. So thank you again.
We
Have a
agree.
good evening.
We agree, and I agree with Commissioner Farnsworth. This has been a 4-year project, maybe 5. So to be here, getting ready to roll out, it is very, very exciting, and to see how well the rollout, because there was a lot of thought, questions, conversations, because when you look at AMI across the country, not every city does it well, and when it goes bad, it goes really, really bad. I saw our candidates sneak in theirs, and then so let's go ahead and slip them in alphabetical order. Mr. Allen, why don't you come down before we move on to item 3 and introduce yourself to us?
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Allen. Thanks to the commission and the city for having me here today. Let me introduce myself. I'm running for City Commission, City Group 3. My platform is I would like to see the city continue to grow, but I would like to see it grow at a balanced pace so we can attract businesses as well as continue increasing our residential side of it. I think we should continue to work to revitalize our downtown, and me and the mayor has spoken about some ideas about getting some festivals or some things downtown to help with that. I think we should stay true to our agricultural roots, make sure we take care of the farmers and keep them in mind as we grow as well. And I also would like to speak to my integrity as a man and as a Christian. If anybody knows me, they know I'm a man and I stand by my Christian values, and I'm highly, highly regarded as far as my integrity. And I can't be bought, and I would never sell out. I would never do that to the citizens of Newberry. I would never do that to myself, and I would never do that to my God. And I will be held accountable for everything that I do. And I would never do anything wrong or misrepresent myself to this commission or this city. And if you all want me tomorrow, y'all can rest assured that y'all got a man that's highly taught in his integrity and do his best to make sure he always do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Mr. Boyer, come on down.
Good evening, everybody. Walt Boyer, also running for City Commission Group 3. If I could just take a minute, could I ask a question about the AMI?
Sure. It's
All
your
right.
time. You got 2 minutes. How you want to
All
spend
right.
it?
Well, because I'm a person who puts our citizens first, my question is, and I may have missed it, it may have been brought up before, with the technology involved, the new website, the high dollar cost of what we're bringing in, is this something the city is absorbing the cost of, or are we passing that cost into our over to our citizens by a slight increase in electric rates? I mean, how are we handling that?
The capital outlay has been paid for over the past 4 years, a little bit at a time, and most of that has come from the reserves that we had. I'll let Mike speak more precisely to that. Actually, this is going to end up probably costing the city money because citizens who learn how to use it are going to be able to cut down their bills. So I don't think, certainly not something that we've increased any costs in order to pay for. And our hope is that residents really learn how to use this and save money. So did I get, is that in essence pretty much right, Mike, about where the money came from for the capital outlay?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we, from our utility reserves for the capital outlay, I'd say that it's accurate that we don't anticipate a rate increase associated with transitioning into AMI, that we'll pick up enough efficiencies through the system that we won't, a lot of it is going to be in productivity. We won't send highly paid line workers out to go meter reading. But we think that we will see reductions in both use of water and electric consumption. Think that will allow us to defer capital expansion projects that we anticipate. You know, if we can not do a $1.5 million, $2 million well-field expansion project and hold off on that for 3 to 4 years, the savings in the time of money, the cost of money over that time frame, we think this is going to save the city and residents money long term. And I think probably the last thing is that you know, a decade, 15 years ago, this was very cutting edge technology. Now it is very well established technology. I don't anticipate that we could avoid going to AMI. I think at some point, I mean, we may have had another 5 or 10 year run at it, but at some point you're not providing the level of service that the rest of your peers are, and your residents insist on that. So I think the timing is perfect for us. We're able to do it cost neutrally. I'm very excited about the program that we're offering our residents.
Okay. And that's basically the exact information I'm looking for the citizens, because they're not hearing that. You know,
They would if they listened. Because we've been saying it.
Well, like I'm saying, this is what people need to hear, that, you know, it's not going to be an increase in their electric bills. And I want people to be confident. And I applaud the technology. I welcome it. I just want other people to be comfortable with it and know it's not going to hit their wallet. So anyways, again, I'm Walt Boyer. I'm running for Newberry City Group 3. And if you're looking for somebody who's looking to protect your interest, looking to protect what's in your wallet, I just ask for your vote on, you know, tomorrow, and hopefully I can earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I, you know, it's like the turnout at AMI Day. I mean, we had all city staff there for 5, 6 hours just to talk, just to get that message across and answer questions and say it. So if anybody in this town wants to know anything, all they have to do is show up and listen. All of these guys are very accessible. We're very transparent. So I hear what Mr. Boyer is saying, but I can't think of a city or a dais that works as hard at getting information out. So you pretty much have to work not to hear and learn in the city of Newberry. So we have public meetings, you know, hopefully that all the candidates can come to the meetings and stay till the end, and then they can help pass that information out to the city when you have those questions and people say, well, what can we do? Okay, let's move on to community development districts. Brian, are you going to introduce Mr. Earlywine to tell us about this very exciting tool in our toolkit that we might have?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to introduce you to Jer Earlywine. He is an attorney with KE Law Group in Tallahassee. We have been speaking with him about the subject of community development districts as the scale and scope of projects in Newberry continues to increase in size. It's inevitable that at some point we're going to have a proposal for a community development district creation, and so we asked Mr. Earlywine to come and give a presentation to the commission to educate us on how they work, and hopefully you'll have a lot of questions for him.
Come on down, sir.
Well, thank you all so much. Again, my name is Jarrett Earlywine. I'm with KE Law Group, and just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to present tonight. What I thought I would do is just talk a little bit about what community development districts are. We'll talk about what some of the benefits are to both the city as well as your residents, and then we can take some questions as well. Just to get us started, and I think a lot of you probably already know, or maybe you've heard of what a CDD is. I mean, there's over 800 of them in Florida right now. And they're, you know, if you have a project that has over 200, 250 residential homes, developers are very interested in putting those in, really for two reasons: because they serve as a alternative financing mechanism, and then they serve as a operation maintenance entity in many ways that are much better than a traditional homeowners association. So that's really what they do, those two purposes. More specifically, a CDD, Community Development District, is a special purpose unit of local government. It's established under Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes for the purpose of financing, constructing, acquiring, operating, and maintaining public infrastructure. Things like roads and stormwater ponds, utilities, amenity centers, hardscape, landscape, irrigation, all the things that you need for a residential community. Mixed use, I heard some discussion about maybe wanting to have commercial components. That absolutely can be done through CDD, and you can actually have purely commercial districts as well. So there's a wide variety of things that it can do. And just sort of from a 50,000-foot view, how they work is a developer who wants to have a CDD installed for their project would come to the local city or the county, depending on where the jurisdiction is, and petition to have the CDD created. Your staff would review the petition. It would come before you, assuming it gets approved. You've just approved what is essentially an independent unit of government. It's separate and apart from you all. You're not responsible for it. You don't have to oversee it or anything along those lines. It acts on its own. But it's really like it's a miniature government for the particular community in question. So it's a homeowners association essentially with some additional powers. And once it's established, the district's board will, in the early years, be populated by the developer, just like a homeowners association would be. They'll go out, they'll have the district issue long-term debt. It's usually a 30-year bond. And to repay the bond, they'll put a special assessment on the property just within the boundaries of that community. And then the developer and then the homeowners will repay that debt over a 30-year period to repay it. And in the meantime, the district will use the proceeds of those bonds to build the roads and the utilities and the stormwater ponds, all the public components of your project. And then once it's finished and the project's installed, the CDD will sort of take over the role of the homeowners association in terms of managing the infrastructure. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of what it is. And one of the things that separates a community development district from other special districts is the number of powers that it has. You know, special districts have been around in Florida since the 1800s. We had drainage districts and road districts back in the 1800s. Now we've got recreation districts and water districts, mosquito control districts, fire districts, water management districts, you name it, we got a district for it. But a CDD can do a lot of those things. It can basically do anything. You look at the list there, it's got stormwater, it's got hardscape, landscape, roads, utilities. You can do conservation areas. And if you look at the last item on that list, you can pretty much do anything that's public in nature and is spelled out in a development approval or an interlocal agreement. So if you have impact fees that you need, or there's an off-site park that the city wants, or off-site improvements with utility extension, we've got CDDs that will actually partner with cities to build utility extensions and roads, partly that will be owned by the city at the end of the project. So CDs can do a lot of different things if you include it in the development approval and it's part of the project concept. So let's talk about some of the, you kind of know what it is, but how does it benefit you? And I sort of think of it as having three buckets, if you will, of benefits. You've got financial benefits, you have the fact that it's a great operation and maintenance entity, and then there's also some additional default protections as well. The main benefits being the financial and the operation and maintenance. In terms of financial benefits, a CDD allows a developer, especially in times like now where you've got, land prices are really high, the construction costs went up, I think 40% even before the war in Ukraine started. Over the last 6 months, they've gone up like 40%. Everything's very, very expensive, and there's a lot of competition. Pretty much everybody and their brothers becoming a developer and trying to develop homes in Florida. And what the CDD does is it allows the developer to install a project with the quality that you all would expect, and also with really competitive home pricing. If you've ever been to a CDD community, it's always got a little bit above and beyond in terms of the amenity package or the entry feature or something along those lines, and the home pricing tends to be very competitive. In the two instances where I've seen a CDD not get established in the last 15 years of doing this, and I know this is very hard to prove, but if you've been on the other side of it, you actually see it happen. The land developer went back and basically they either cut things that they were going to add to the project, like they cut back on the amenity, they cut back on the landscaping, and they raised the lot prices and the home prices. That's flat out what happened. It was a lose-lose situation in those two instances. And most jurisdictions are using community development districts now. I think there's over 800 in Florida. Alachua has a half dozen or so. And so they're in order to compete in the market with all the developers out there, you basically have to have the CDD in order to deliver that kind of quality package. And it saves, obviously it saves the developer money, it saves the homeowners money, not just on the front end when the infrastructure is first put in, but also later on, it turns over just like a homeowners association to resident control. And 15, 20, 30 years in, you'll have residents on those boards, and they can access the tax-exempt bond market to save them money again and spread costs over time. The reason that these projects do save money through the CDD is because they can issue tax-exempt bonds. Just like cities and counties can issue tax-exempt bonds, so can the CDD. So they get really great rates, which means the infrastructure costs less, and they can spread the cost over a 30-year period, which under a traditional mortgage loan on a raw piece of land, you're going to get it maybe a 10-year loan. It's going to have a pretty high interest rate. It's even very competitive compared to the revolving mortgage loans that developers use today. So it's a really it's a great cost savings measure both now and then also when they come back and refurbish the infrastructure later on. So that's sort of the financial benefit, and there's some others we'll get into in just a second when we talk about the maintenance aspect. I mentioned that CDs are a great operation and maintenance entity, and that's absolutely the case. If you compare it to a homeowners association, CDs can just do a lot more than an HOA can. One of the biggest reasons is that they can collect on the tax roll. So these assessments I'm talking about, they're used to repay the bonds, but they also levy special assessments to pay for the annual operation and maintenance of the improvements. They pay for the landscaping and the amenity center and whatnot, and those get collected on the tax roll. It's such a powerful mechanism. Homeowners associations, when they go back to refurbish projects, they have a hard time because they've got to go put liens on homes in order to do that. And coming out of the Great Recession, there were a lot of cities and counties that ended up getting stuck with HOA roads and things like that. The HOAs would come back and say, we can't take care of this. We can't possibly collect all these liens. It's such a pain in the neck. Please help us out. Please take our roads or whatnot. And in fact, I was in Marion County and established one last summer in Marion County. And the county said you actually have to have a CDD or an MSBU or some sort of taxing entity for the roads and the other infrastructure, or we're not going to approve your project if it's over a certain size. So they really like the CDD structure. Same thing in Clay County. And in fact, the very meeting that I was getting my CDD established, there was a HOA that was coming before them to get an MSBU established because they couldn't take care of their roads. So it just goes to show you that taxing ability, the ability to collect on the tax roll is really important when it comes to long-term maintenance of projects. But the ability to go on the tax roll isn't the only benefit. CDDs as governmental entities, they have sovereign immunity protection. They have the ability to get FEMA funding, which HOAs can't get. I had a project down in, where was it, Southwest Florida, that was a really small project. It had been around for a long, long time. They had been a CDD community and an HOA community, and they thought, well, we've paid off our debt. We're a small community. We don't have a ton of lots. We don't want to have the administrative expense of both the CDD and the HOA. We'd like to get rid of our CDD and give all of the CDD assets to the HOA. And all the residents in the audience basically made all the arguments I just made about how great the CDD is. And because it was a small community, they didn't want to fight with each other, so they sort of backed off. Well, the next year, Hurricane Irma went through and tore up all their stormwater ponds, and they got FEMA funding because it was a CDD community. And that, I looked it up just before the presentation, that CDD is still there today. They really like their CDD. In addition, a CDD is a very transparent entity. It's subject to sunshine laws, public records laws, ethics laws, and has professional staff on hand. Sometimes HOAs have those, sometimes they kind of let it go. But with professional staff, I know the water management districts really like having the CDDs around. We can post money for the permit requirements and do some other things like that. So it's a really powerful long-term maintenance entity and helps maintain your property values on a much longer time period. If you look here, we've got a little chart here on CDDs and HOAs. It's just kind of talking about some of the things we got there. So you see the infrastructure costs less both at the beginning as well as when you come back and refurbish it in the future. You can see, we'll talk about default protection here in a minute. They've got the ability to collect on the tax roll. They have sovereign immunity protection, which is better than an HOA. So they're not going to get stuck with frivolous lawsuits and things like that. CDDs tend to turn over earlier to residents, and so the residents are more empowered to get involved in the community. Actually, when 50% of the land has been transitioned and sold, they have landowners elections every 2 years, and you can start turning over seats through that process. And then at the your backstop is when you get to year 6, 2 of the 5 board supervisor seats will turn over to resident control, and then year 8, all 4. But it can actually turn over earlier. And with an HOA, it's always 90% build out, right? So it's a different time clock there. We talked about the FEMA funding, the accountability. There's a ton more accountability with CDs. We'll get into the transparency aspect at the end. And again, it's just a better long-term value. One of the other, I mentioned that there's 3 sort of buckets of benefits: the financial, the operation and maintenance. There's also some advantage to having the CDD in the context of default. Some people say, well, what happens if your project defaults and you have a CDD? Isn't that a problem? Well, a project can default whether you have a CDD or not a CDD. The truth is actually part of the reason CDDs were set up is to protect against defaults during a recessionary environment, and that's exactly what happened during the Great Recession. There were projects that defaulted, some had CDDs, some didn't. The advantage that you have with the CDD is that if it's just an HOA and a developer there and the developer goes belly up, that project is done. It's going to sit there until someone comes in and cleans it up, right? But with the CDD, you actually have bondholders. If the CDD has gone out and issued bonds, there's bonds sitting in a construction account held by a trustee bank, like Regions Bank or U.S. Bank. It's not sitting there in the developer's pocket. It's sitting in a trustee bank controlled by the trustee and the bondholders. And they can use that money to finish out a phase of the project. They can use it to keep your landscaping water, your amenity center open. I know one in Lake County where they kept their amenity running and all that working because they had that reserve money on hand. They can even pay for foreclosure fees to get that project back into productive use more quickly. And so I'm not saying this is a guaranteed fix for defaults. I mean, the CD projects can default just like HOAs, but it certainly helps get that project back into productive use if you're in a default scenario, and there is that money on hand that you wouldn't have in a traditional developer HOA project. I think it's worth pointing out that the city, in the context of a CDD, does retain all of its powers and authority. You know, a CDD is a special purpose unit of local government, but what it really does is it acts as the developer of the public infrastructure early on, and then it acts as a homeowners association later on after the improvements are put in. So it's not going to take over your role for approving the zoning for the property, for example, or making development decisions, or issuing permits, or doing police protection, or any of those sorts of things. You all will keep all of that power and authority. The CD simply doesn't have it under Chapter 190. The CD also doesn't show up on your books. It's not going to, you know, it's not like a dependent district that's going to have liabilities. It's going to be shared by you all. If there's a default of the CDD, I'm not aware of any CDDs in Florida. We represent over 200 of the 800 or so CDDs in Florida. I've never heard of a CDD having to be taken over, for example, by a unit of local government. Instead, the bondholders always step in and take over the assets and make sure that project gets back into productive use. And the Chapter 190 has a specific provision saying that no debt of the CDD can ever be a debt of the city or county, or state for that matter. In terms of benefits to the city, a lot of these benefits are pretty self-explanatory. It's not going to show up on your books. It's going to provide a means by which the projects can take care of themselves. You can sort of see the list up there. The biggest thing is you're much less likely to get complaints from a CDD than you would a homeowners association, because it has so much more power to go on the tax roll to collect to collect its revenues. It's got the ability to finance long-term projects if it needs it. So, and they've got access to emergency funding, unlike a homeowners association. So it's a much more durable entity than a homeowners association. Not saying it can't happen, right? I mean, there's CDDs get into scrapes from time to time with maybe turning over an off-site asset or something like that. But compared to a homeowners association, it puts you in a better position than the homeowners association. In terms of benefits to residents, some of this we've already covered. Again, it allows the residents to kind of come in earlier and control their own destiny, set their own level of service, gives them access to cheaper money, allows them to spread costs over time for future projects, gives them a little better amenity package, a little higher level of entry feature, landscaping, just a better quality project, and the ability to sort of take care of the project and maintain their property values, as I'd already discussed. In terms of CDD transparency, and this is important because, I think if I'm thinking of, are there any downsides to a CDD or anything that you can think of where you wouldn't want to use a CDD? There's 2 points I would make about that. One is you don't want to use a CDD when the project's too small, because you're going to have an HOA to do architectural control in the homes. A CDD doesn't have that power. And so you're going to have an HOA and a CDD, you're going to pay for both of those administrative costs. So you need enough units that it makes sense to do the CDD. So they say you need about $3 to $5 million worth of infrastructure and maybe over 250 units. If you're right around 250, you want to look closely at it. But you're not in Miami, right, where you can have a 100-unit CDD and make that work. But smaller CDDs, you got to be careful about. And then the other thing you want to be aware of is the disclosure requirements, because you want to make sure that residents, when they're buying into the project, are aware of what they're buying into, and they can shop across the street and say, hey, this project doesn't have a CDD, this project does have a CDD. I know what that means. I know what the costs are going to be in both places, and I can see that there's a higher value over here with better quality improvements, a better looking project than over here, and I'm going to make an informed decision. The legislature about 5 or so years ago increased the disclosure requirements to help address that issue. And there's a ton of things that we do, both in the context of the statutory requirements for transparency, as well as just sort of general practice things. But there's a ton of disclosure in the public record. So there's disclosures of public finance when we issue bonds that get handed out to residents. There are notices in the public record saying that the CDD's been established and notifying people about that. You see it in your sales contract. There's also when the CDD goes to issue debt or levy its assessment for its annual budget, they're going to get a mailed notice to their home. There's going to be a newspaper advertisement. The CDDs all have public websites that have to have certain statutory information on them. So there's a lot of transparency in there, and we can provide more details to your staff when we get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about these in particulars, and provide some of those disclosures to you and kind of see what those forms look like and get you all comfortable with that. So I guess the last thing I would say is, in terms of the establishment criteria, Florida statutes set forth 6 criteria to establish a CDD, and it's pretty straightforward. The petition has to be true and correct, and you have to be consistent with existing assets and facilities. You have to be consistent with the land use plan. And there's, let me see if I can read all 6 of them here. The other, the CDD has to be amenable to the separate special district government, and the CDD has to be developable as a functional interrelated community. And finally, this is number 6, the CDD has to be the best alternative for delivering community development services and facilities. And in most cases, if you have a large enough project, I think that is the case. It really is a much better alternative than a traditional developer HOA, run community. So that's really the balance of the presentation and the information. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have, and again, really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
All right, thank you. This is an exciting question, possibility. Commissioner Farnsworth.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is all new to me, so I'm kind of got the
experience out of anybody.
Okay.
Not in building or development, I don't. And where I live, we definitely don't have an HOA.
You want to know if it's retroactive?
Yeah. So it's, just for clarification, is this something that's requested by the developer, or is it something that the city of Newberry says, hey, you got to do the CDD instead of a HOA, or how does that work?
By the developer. So the developer will come in and say, hey, I think this is a project that'd be good for a CDD, and here's why. And we'll have a petition and application. It'll come to you all. It'll come to your staff first. They'll look at it, see if it meets the criteria, and we'll bring it before you and have you consider it. So it's not something you had to impose on anybody. It's something that's requested.
Okay. And do you find that the developers are happy with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they honestly, especially in today's market, they can't compete on larger projects without the CDD. If you have a CDD and a non-CDD, the one without the CDD, you're going to have to jack up the home prices. If they don't get their CDD, the home prices are going up because the cost of the infrastructure is going to get funded by the homeowner, either in the cost of the home price or elsewhere. They're either going to shorten up the assets they're putting in, or they're going to increase that home price.
And after the development is done, the infrastructure such as the roads and stuff are usually deeded over to the city. Does that fall into this also?
Well, the utilities, for example, the utilities infrastructure which the city can fund would certainly be turned over to the city if you all want it. The roads, if you want those as well, a lot of developers will want to turn those over. If you don't want to turn them over, you can make the CDD take them. I mean, that's what it's set up to do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the dais?
No, great presentation.
Okay.
Commissioner Maison?
Yeah, I got one. So can the CDD pay for Can the CDD pay for infrastructure outside of a development?
Yes, as long as it's in a development approval or an interlocal agreement, it can pay for off-site improvements. Bear in mind, it has to be required for the project, right? But if you put it in the interlocal agreement or development approval, it works. Now, we can't assess anybody outside our boundaries, so we can only make the residents within our boundaries pay for that. So that's why it needs to be tied to the development approval for the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Does it require investment by the city?
No, not at all. No investment at all.
Okay. So how does this tie, just one more question, how does this tie in when it comes to affordable homes?
Well, if you have an affordable housing program, the development is going to have to go through that same process that it would with or without the CDD. The advantage of the CDD is, the infrastructure is going to cost less. So it's going to make it more likely that you're able to hit those affordable housing goals.
Commissioner Martin.
So you're saying that the developer is going to charge less than they could normally. And then re-explain that, how you think, how that plays out in the market.
So with the traditional project, the way it works is the money costs more without the CDD because you can't access that same tax-exempt bond market to borrow the money, and you can't spread the cost over time. So they build the whole infrastructure costs into the home price up front. If you have a CDD, though, not only can you access the tax-exempt bond market where the money costs less, but you can also spread the cost over a 30-year period, which you traditionally couldn't do. And so what that means is you have more money to put into the project in terms of a better amenity package, more landscaping, which is very typical. If you go look at CDD projects around Florida, they just look a little better than, I mean, the contract lawyer who works with me lives in Southwood in Tallahassee, which is a CDD, has an amazing amenity package, this huge park system. It's a beautiful project. So if the developer isn't able to get the CDD, there's less money there to put in the project, so they either need to raise the home prices to basically account for that infrastructure cost, the additional infrastructure cost, or they got to take something out of the project that otherwise they could put in. So that's kind of how it works.
Why wouldn't they do both? Why wouldn't they charge market rate on the development and provide all the amenities and make more money?
You mean, well, I think they do make a little bit more money with the CDD, but it also means that the home buyer is getting a better deal too. So it's a I mean, this is all market driven. So that gets back to my question of transparency, and that's why I was saying that on the last or second to last slide. You want to make sure that these are really well disclosed so that people can go across the street and say, hey, this is a CDD. Here's how much you're going to be paying for the CDD. Here's a non-CDD project. Here's what you're paying for the non-CDD project, and let the buyer decide. But there's a lot of disclosure about it, and there's over 800 of these in Florida. It's a little bit like the AMI thing. It's been around for a long time. It may just be new to Newberry, but there's special districts in Florida, and also there's special districts around the nation, and they're really common now.
If we've all heard horror stories about HOAs and what keeps the. I mean, you've got a CDD, which sounds like an HOA on steroids.
That's exactly what it is.
What keeps them from becoming just onerous on steroids? I mean, they're holding your house hostage. HOA sort of can, which I understand that provides the assurity side of it, but. Walk me through that.
Well, there's a couple things. Obviously, if you have good people with an HOA or good people operating a CDD, they can both be successful, right? It's just the CDD is going to have more options and ability to access cheaper money and do more things. If you have bad people on the HOA or CDD board, that's not good. But I don't know that it's damaging to have the CDD. If you've got bad people on the board, hopefully they'll get voted out, and the CDD structure will help you recover from that better. The other thing too is if you get into the CDD and you're 10 or 20 years in, and the residents are looking at it and say, hey, we've kind of seen how these both operate, and we don't want the CDD anymore, they can give the assets to the HOA and dissolve it. So again, it comes back to that transparency issue, and the residents get to make the decision. So.
I'm sorry. Do you ever see where a CDD becomes more powerful than the actual city itself?
No.
The city board?
No, not at all.
Well, if you have a CDD that gets behind certain candidates so that they can do more things or whatever, I can see that being a little bit of a.
Well, again, getting back to the slide I had up there earlier, just talking about the fact that it's a limited unit of government. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can finance, but otherwise it really just has, in the ability to go on the tax roll, it doesn't have traditional city powers. It's not going to have a police force. It's not going to, go out and make zoning or permitting decisions or anything like that. So it's pretty limited in terms of what it can do. It's going to have a Christmas party and, operate a rec facility and, fund refurbishment of its stormwater ponds, things like that. So it's pretty limited in terms of what it can actually do.
But
it just can do more than an HOA.
They couldn't get behind candidates that will create favorable
Not
situations for themselves?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're going to have their own candidates when they run for their own elections within their bounds of their district, but those are governed by the same election laws that apply to cities and counties too. I don't see them coming in and organizing. I mean, I don't. That's certainly outside the purview of the CDD statute. I would say that.
Okay. And you said they can be done for both commercial and residential projects?
Yes, sir, and mixed use.
Is there one that becomes more popular? Of the 800, do you know the break?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority are residential, and the second category would be mixed use. A lot of the residentials have small pieces of commercial, they might have some shops and things on the front end of the project. We see a lot of those, so, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman?
So, how many lenders are out there that's willing to go on a 30-year? Because, you know, you're basing that on a LIBOR rate, which is really it's virtually nothing right now.
Well,
but is there
yeah.
a lot of lenders out there willing to do that?
There are.
Because you don't see it on that much.
Yeah, well, they're institutional lenders, so it's Goldman Sachs and, you know, it used to be Oppenheimer, and although they've changed their name now, I can't remember so there's probably a half dozen institutional lenders like that. And, you know, they were in the market before the Great Recession. And guess who's in the market after the Great Recession? Same lenders. So the money is definitely there for the projects. I've never seen a project not get funded. There was a slowdown right around the COVID outbreak for a month. People didn't know what was going on, so we didn't issue bonds during that 1 month. But that's and then during the Great Recession, when people weren't buying and selling homes, that was another time when Cs weren't funding. But they didn't. You know, no one wanted to fund them at that point. So yeah. But I've never seen someone try to issue bonds and not have money available for it. Mm-hmm.
Other commission questions? I have one or two.
Sure.
And anybody who's ever met me will tell you I'm not that smart. So just give me the 20,000 foot. So
Yes, sir.
I get this is a levy on top of the taxes that this board sets. There's no trade-off? The developer doesn't come and say, well, let's split. I'm going to bring you 500 residential, and I'm going to bring you, 40 acres of commercial, and I'd want the property value kind of like a CRA, right? And so we'll put in half and you put in half? That's not at all what a CDD is?
No, it has nothing to do with, I don't know if you've done tax increment finance or, I mean, you can have deals like that with a CDD, but those tend to be some of those bigger ones like Midtown Miami, or there's a big project up in Jacksonville where they're financing some city project to go with it. But that's your typical residential project or mixed-use project. They're putting their assessment on there, and the way they're sizing the assessment is basically what's the market look like in Alachua? What are the other CDDs in Alachua doing? Because the developer, let's say we got a $20 million budget for infrastructure, the CDD assessments will maybe cover a part of that, but if you get outside of what the market will bear, let's say they can do $10 million in assessments and still be in line with the other CDDs in Alachua, the other half of that project is going to be funded out of the pocket of the developer. So,
okay.
But it never takes away your tax money at all.
And is this in a PD? That might be a question for staff. Would it be wrapped into a PD, or could be wrapped into a PD, or is it usually wrapped into a PD?
A lot of the times, the CDD is discussed at the same time as the PD. We usually try to get the PD approved first and have those discussions kind of at the same time. And you could actually have the PD go on the agenda first and have the CDD second, usually on the same agenda. It's pretty typical.
Okay. And you've talked a lot about being able to compare neighborhoods and tell people, well, this one is a CDD and this one's not a CDD. Who does that comparison? Because what I'm envisioning is a nightmare of information. We just talked a little bit earlier tonight about how hard it is to get information out. Mm-hmm. So I can hear residents in a development with a CDD saying, or without one, saying, well, how come they got nice new roads and they've got a nice new, y'all spend all your money in there.
Right.
Don't spend any money in here. So whose job is it? And how do you go about telling people, well, because when I tell people that a road belongs to the county or the state, not the city of Newberry, that doesn't really go over all that well. Mm-hmm. They just want us to fix it.
Right.
So who does that?
So there's a couple places that comes up. First off, obviously the developer, when they're doing their sales of the homes, is going to have certain literature on the CDD. There's a disclosure they have to hand out. Most of the developers I work with also have kind of a 3-page brochure that we make for them that they hand out. And of course, it's on their sales contract too, right? And there's disclosures there. On top of that, the CDD will be in existence, and then it's got all the different transparency items that I've talked about. There's disclosures in the public record. There's a public website that they can go on and see what the maintenance obligations are. There's professional staff on hand too to ask questions of, and then of course they're getting mailed and published notices for any assessment hearings and other things like that. So they do find out about it.
And that's a great way to segue to my next question is who's regulating that? So let's say you got a CDD and they're they're not doing a great job. They've elected some folks that aren't doing, aren't the residents going to turn to this board and say, hey, how do I deal with that? How do I make a public records request? Who ends up coming in and has to tell that board, you're not doing what you said you're going to do?
I mean, that's a great question. I think that you're going to, if you have someone who's unhappy with their homeowners association, I'm sure they reach out to y'all too. Same thing can happen with your CDD. I think it's just, it's, again, the CDD, because it's got the public website, because it's got the public meetings and all the rest of it, usually they sort out their own issues and they're more empowered to fix it. And of course, those residents are getting on those boards a little earlier than a homeowner association too. So, you're going to get questions from any type of development. I just think there's more transparency and more information out there on the CDDs nowadays than there were on the homeowner associations.
So as part of the PD, we could put it in there that, there has to be some sort of effort towards informing. So if a resident calls up a commissioner and says, hey, I got a pothole, or somebody crashed into our $100,000 red brick entranceway and, we need that fixed.
Right.
We would say, well, here's the number to call your
Yeah.
CDD, and we would put it on that board to help
That's
with that.
exactly right. Oftentimes, the CDs will come up with a maintenance map showing who owns what and who's responsible for what. If y'all want to have a little more disclosure, some jurisdictions, I know Osceola County's one, City of St. Cloud follows their lead. They'll do a little interlocal agreement that travels along with the CDD petition, and we can put whatever you want in there, and the petitioner will agree to it. And then there's also a interlocal agreement that once the city's established, that board will enter into in whatever obligations you want to pass along to the CDD, that it'll be governed by that agreement too. So there's definitely ways to create that.
Okay. And you said 250 in our area would be like a maybe you could make that work.
I think
So
the
you're looking at
250
more
is
like-
pretty good. Anything over 250 is probably pretty good,
Okay.
but you want to look at each project individually. So I don't, I hate to put a specific number on it, but if you're at 200 or 150 and coming to Newberry, I'd look pretty hard at that project before you do it.
Are there regulations about the staff? You said that there's a paid staff that handles all this inside the CDD. Is that one part-timer?
No,
Is that-
there are professional
That's
management.
pretty expensive.
Yeah, well, there's professional management companies that, they may be managers for 100 CDDs, right? And they've got managers who will come to manage the meetings. They'll hire on site staff if the community has a bunch of infrastructure, a mini center, you probably have somebody hired on staff, but that manager will hire them. They are required to carry certain insurance. There's usually a district engineer as well, a district council, that's my role typically. And so that's the main staff people, and then any admins and on-ground staff if you need it.
Okay. And I have talked to a couple of local developers in town who are interested in continuing this conversation. Are there any more questions about this from the dais? Mike, what's the next step here? To put this tool in our toolkit, how do we proceed?
I think, Mr. Mayor, that ultimately an applicant comes forward and we'd like to use this vehicle. I suspect that the commission doesn't feel completely equipped to use a vehicle like this after one presentation, but we could, if we get interest from an applicant, my proposal is, or suggestion is, if we get interest from an applicant wanting to use this tool, that before we get in a public meeting specific to that application, that we conduct a workshop, a little less formal. We can spend more time having some one-on-one conversations, not limited to a 20 or 30-minute presentation. We could dig in, roll up our sleeves, learn quite a bit about it, and then be prepared to move forward and consider an application from an applicant.
Is this something that your group might come in and consult with on the first one or two to make sure we're asking the right questions?
Absolutely, and there's a couple ways you can handle it. I think we'd be happy to do a workshop. Most jurisdictions, and I turn to your city attorney to confirm this, most jurisdictions consider these legislative determinations that are really in your discretion. And on that basis, a lot of times we'll sit down one-on-one with each of you too, if you want that, and talk you through the particular petition application, and then y'all can come as a group and talk about it as a workshop. However you want to handle it's fine by us, but we're happy to educate, we're happy to create those agreements you're talking about, include any provisions to get you guys comfortable with what we're proposing. So.
Commissioner Coleman?
Let me get, so I got this right in my head. So the developer goes out and we created a CDD, and like, I was just looking at what a 20-year fixed is, 2.75 is cheap money. That's 20-year.
I don't think it's 2.75 anymore, is it?
No, that's today. I looked at the.
Oh, is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I was also looking at a 30. It's 3.87. So they take that, which I was looking, they won't loan over 7.2 million. I don't know that, but that was one site I went to real quick. But here's the deal. So all the homeowners, I'm trying to get,
Yeah, sure.
all the homeowners that buy in that development, they're on the hook, not all of us sitting out.
That's correct.
We're all.
That's correct. The district only has the authority to levy assessments within its boundaries. And, the rates on, these are bonds issued essentially on
Right.
raw land. So the number you're using is on a different scale, essentially. Last year rates were in the threes, in terms of issuing, which is unbelievable compared,
Right.
these used to be 6-7% type loans. The last one I saw, a couple weeks ago was about 4.5-ish. So it's gone up a little bit, but the money's a lot less expensive than what you'd get on a traditional mortgage.
Yes.
I'm talking about like a developer mortgage, yeah.
Right.
And our CDDs, one of the benefits of a PD is that the city has the opportunity to engage with a developer and really create each one to be a unique living entity on its own. Is a CDD more confined, or does every CDD have elements that are unique to it?
So your development approval process is completely unaffected by the CDD. You all can do whatever PD plan you do. Every project's going to have its own PD and its own plan. The CDD is a way to pay for that. The nice thing for the city, and I'm not saying this out loud, but if there's something you all want, it provides, there's more money in the deal. So, if you all want a little city park or trail system or something like that, it's something you can ask for and have that discussion. But it's really a separate application process, and the PD is separately discussed and analyzed.
Okay, so the PD would be where you would have the conversations about the roads and the entranceway
That's right.
and those kinds of things. The
That's
CDD would be the mechanism to pay for it.
Pay for it,
But
and
this board
and
wouldn't
manage the
say
project.
to the developer, well, you can't levy more than X for the first 5 years. That would be.
Right.
You wouldn't do that. They get to
Yeah.
get to determine what that is.
That's right. It becomes its own governmental entity, so,
But this board decides what it needs to look like you would do anytime.
That's right.
But you give them another way to pay for it,
Yeah.
so you can ask for some nicer things.
Right.
And is this how? I know this is too simplistic, but I want to know how too simplistic. We have a lot of people that ask, like Watermelon Pond Road. It's a long dirt road out here. It's owned by 3 different governing entities. And the people on it would love us to pave it, and it'd be about $6 million to pave the road. And so we've offered a special taxing district, which is, just for the people who live on that road, you could pay.
Exactly.
And
Exactly it.
that would be the retroactive thing that Commissioner Farnsworth would love for his neighborhood. Go around, knock on doors, right? That's not too simplistic. It's pretty much the same thing, but for the
yeah.
special taxing, you're doing
Yeah.
infrastructure item at a time. I want this very specific thing. This could be all infrastructure in one.
That's right. And if there's a county road that you want improved that's connected to that project, that's the type of thing that's put into the improvement plan all the time, so.
Okay.
Could I interject there?
Please.
I think, just to make sure I understand, a similarity between a CDD and an assessment that a city might develop with a group of property owners in a neighborhood. They're essentially, there's a lot of similarities, I would say. However, the CDD is a negotiated deal between a developer and a city that sets forth how it's going to go, and the property owners come in, and when they purchase property, they agree. They know that's part of the deal. It's part of the disclosure is I'm buying a house that's in a special taxing district, and I'm subject to that taxing rate. Whereas the converse is when we do special assessments, there is no developer. It's us and all those property owners trying to see if we can come together on a similar type of taxing scenario. Is that?
I think that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Commissioner Martin, you gave a great presentation. That's why you get to this robust conversation.
I think this is good. We're trying to get information.
You said there
out.
were a few that were in Alachua. You thought maybe a half a dozen or so. Do you happen to know what those were? And was Celebration one of them? I know that they have some special
Yeah.
sales tax you got to pay for anything you buy in
And
there.
there's one in Gainesville, Finley Woods, sound right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's about a half dozen of them. I've actually got two in front of the city, or the county of Alachua, I think next month in May coming up. So kind of on the interchange. The names escape me, but I can get you the list pretty easily.
I'm sorry, did you say Celebration Point was one?
I believe it is, yes, sir.
So they charge actually a sales tax over there. Why is that different than being on the tax assessment for the businesses themselves?
I think they may have a public improvement fee on theirs too, which is, it may be collected by the CDD, but that's actually a different sort of structure where they have a recorded covenant against the property, I think. I'm not that familiar with that particular project, but that's what it sounds like if it's like a sales tax.
Okay. And because you...
I would say the 99% of the CDs don't have that.
Okay.
So
So there's probably something else going on there. So you pay for the initial, but how do you end up paying for the carrying beyond that? I mean, these things never go away, right?
No, I mean, they can. If the residents don't want them anymore, they'll come back and say, hey, we voted as a board to dissolve this, and would you please dissolve it? We've transferred all the assets to the HOA. That is one scenario. But like I told you about the project down in Southwest Florida, the residents actually like them.
But they got to keep paying for maintenance over and over and
They
over
do.
and
It's
over
just like a homeowner association. I mean, they're going to pay for maintenance every year. Every year, the city will establish a budget for maintaining the landscape and all the rest of it. Again, they do have the cost of administration for the city and cost of administration for an HOA. Typically, the administration of one of them goes down quite a bit if there's two entities involved, but there is some additional expense.
So what they get charged on their tax bill fluctuates based on the variable costs. So there's always something built in to pay the mortgage of all that infrastructure.
That's exactly right.
But there may be another $250 a year for, now we're doing whatever maintenance, or
That's right.
we got to rebuild this deck or rebuild this whatever.
That's right.
So that annual budget kind of is taxed on to the fixed costs of the infrastructure mortgage.
Right, and the mortgage, obviously, the fixed costs, part of it will get paid off after 30 years. Now, they may do a new bond to pay for infrastructure, or maybe they save up reserves, however they want to do it, it's fine. But after that's paid off, it's just the O&M expense that you're talking about, just like a homeowner association would have.
Okay. Well, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you
You bet.
very much. We're
thank you all very much.
We're going to move on, but I would not be surprised if we don't try to schedule that workshop sometime soon.
Be happy to do it. Thank you again so much, really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your commission likes to hear from you, and normally we try to get to it a little bit earlier tonight, but we had a robust conversation there. So tonight is public announcements. Anyone who'd like to address the commission on anything, doesn't have to be on the agenda, has 2 minutes to do so. If you need to make an announcement to the dais that takes a little bit longer, a little more controversial, we have a 5-minute public announcement, public comment at the end of the night as well. So if you just need 2 minutes, now's a great time to do it. And I see Brian's already made his way up. You want to introduce us to somebody?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to announce that our new principal planner has arrived, and today was his first day, Jean-Paul Perez. He comes to us from South Florida and lived in Hollywood, and he's working for Broward County most recently. He's got 9 years of urban and regional planning in South Florida, experience with all different development sizes, which is going to be helpful. He's got a bachelor's degree in urban and regional planning from Florida Atlantic University, and he says he's excited to work for this board and the community. So with that, just welcome.
Great. Well, welcome. We always love it when people join us. You want to come and introduce yourself. I have a note here that says you like to be called JP. Is that right? Or are we jumping too informal?
No, I go by JP. You can call me JP. Thank you for this opportunity. Look very much forward to working with everyone here and helping the commission and the residents and the businesses achieve their vision plan for the city. So thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming to Newberry. We like to pop quiz everybody. So CDDs, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up.
All right. Okay. All right. Any other public announcements, public comments? Come on down. Hero of the Hour, another festival in the books.
That's right, one down, Lisa Tate with Newberry Main Street. We did have our spring fling Saturday. It went over fairly well. It got the gust of winds really did some damage to a few tents. We were fighting hard. But at the end of the day, there were several tents gone and people were still had their booths going. Pardon me? Yes, they did. I have a little leftover if I scratch my face. Rough count, I think we had probably about 1,500-ish attenders. It was a little smaller. We had 50 vendors, and overall it was a good day. Saw several of commissioners there. And Mayor, always appreciate your attendance. And had a lot of political tables this time. Probably the bigger number that we've ever done. So that was kind of fun and interesting too. Some upcoming things, and I'm sure you'll hear a little more about it by the other people involved. We do have West Fest coming the 23rd of this month, and then the Watermelon Festival is on May 21st. Also, May will be our shop local, our mid-year shop local, so you'll see stuff coming out with that. So be sure and shop your local people and send your application or send your receipts, and I'll get some more information out on the Facebook. So that is all I had.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
guys. Please pass along our gratitude to all the hardworking volunteers
Yes,
at
thank
Main
you.
Street for doing all the work to put that on. Anytime you can bring 1,500 people into town, it's a good thing to do.
And we always appreciate you.
Well,
Your students
I
that come
did.
and help us, we couldn't do it without
Great.
them in the
I'm
morning.
glad they showed up.
All right,
And I
thank
didn't get a call, so I guess I didn't win the 50-50 this year. I told her I'd never win.
You know who did? You know who did?
Who won?
Crystal.
Wow.
She said,
She
Mayor
took my
is
winning
going to be
ticket."
so mad at me. She said, I told him I was going to win. And she did.
Other public comment. Come on down, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time. I'm Marlon Day with the Alachua County Library District, the Newberry Branch Library Manager here. Last week was National Library Appreciation Week, and we want to thank the community for their support. Also, at the beginning of this month, we restarted indoor programs. They've been on a hiatus because of the pandemic, but we're now bringing them back. So we have a monthly music and movement class for toddlers, very popular. It's going to be on Saturday mornings. We have the Newberry Needle Crafters are meeting again each Tuesday at 1. And our teen specialist has a ongoing monthly art program that's a lot of fun for teens and for all ages, really. We're continuing with the outdoor programs. The Story Time on the Green is still going on at Lewisport Park each Tuesday at 10:30 until it gets too hot, probably. And we have our virtual programs are still ongoing as well. Patrons can zoom into those or watch as a recording on our website or on our YouTube channel. So we'd like to invite everyone to visit. We are currently open more hours, actually, than we were before the pandemic. And information about all of our programs can be found on our website, www.aclib.us. I'd ask that you please share this announcement and look forward to seeing you in the library.
Thank you, sir. We will share it, absolutely. We appreciate you. Other public comment, and while they're making their way down, Jamie, can I test your engineering skills and see if you can fold up a sheet of paper enough to keep that podium from rocking around? Come on down, sir.
Hi, Paul Busby, Newberry citizen. I want to put the brakes on this CDD thing. It sounds great. Hello, how's that? Is that better? I want to put the brakes on this thing. 168 CDDs in the state of Florida are $5.1 billion in default on their not loans. I just went right out of my head. Yeah, bonds. How do they float those bonds? Who decides to get those bonds? How do they get processed? Not only that, the Board of Supervisors. He mentioned 6 years. The Board of Supervisors isn't controlled by that company. That seems a little sketchy to me because what has stopped them from doing things not for the people that live there, but for the company itself? There's a lot of questions. I mean, it kind of reminds me, I started seeing the old Simpsons Springfield monorail episode started coming up. It's a monorail. We got to build a monorail. I strongly encourage you to look really hard into this. What do we need this for? I mean, I understand money's great, but slow and steady usually wins the race, and you guys are actually doing a pretty good job. Most everybody's pretty happy. Just take a long, hard look at it. That's all we ask. All right? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And we'll give Jamie just a minute or two, see if he can stop the rocking up here. And just so everybody's aware, we're talking about CDDs as something to discuss. We haven't instituted them yet. Look at that. That's why he gets the big bucks right there. Yeah. Well done. Well done. So we'll talk about hitting the brakes after we maybe tap the gas after a lot more education. So, other public comment. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to our first public hearing ordinance. This is a legislative public hearing, and it's the second reading. Brian, as you're making your way down, Scott, would you please read ordinance 2022-09/CPA 22-03 into the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance number 2022-09, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 50 or fewer acres of land established under the small-scale amendment provisions of Section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to City of Newberry agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Parcel numbers 02597000000 and 02597-001-000, consisting of approximately 40.32 acres, contiguous acres of land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass the ordinance as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Brian, go ahead and give a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading of the ordinance you've seen previously. On land previously annexed into the City of Newberry. There's your location map. It's 2 parcels on the county line down on the southern end of the City of Newberry. It was annexed in February 15th of 2022. The first steps change the future land use map, which we're talking about right now. That'll be followed by the rezoning. You've already heard it, both of these on first reading and approved them. This is now your second reading for enactment. The staff's recommendation is to, things are kind of popping all over the place. Staff's recommendation is to approve ordinance 2022-06 on second reading.
Just keeping you on your toes, starting at the bottom, animations to the top. All right, guys, this is our second reading on this one. So did anybody come up with any questions in between the first and second reading for staff? If we have no questions, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Martin. I have to have a motion before I ask the public. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? I did, yeah. Do I have any questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. We're one step away. We're getting so close, sir. So close. All right, and Brian, you're staying in place. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading ordinance 2022-16/CPA 2204 into the record?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 50 or fewer acres of land established under the small-scale amendment provisions of Section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from the Alachua County rural agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to the City of Newberry agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number is 018 040-002-001, consisting of approximately 20.02 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass the ordinance as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's ordinance 2022-16. Again, it's an ordinance to change future land use from Alachua County agricultural to City of Newberry agricultural on lands previously annexed into the City of Newberry. Staff's recommends approval of ordinance 2022-06, application CPA 21-32 on second reading.
All right, guys, same thing. Second reading is the second part. I got a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Coleman out of the room. Scott, would you please read ordinance 2022-21/CPA 2205 into the record for us?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry comprehensive plan of 50 or fewer acres of land established under the small-scale amendment provisions of section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, provided for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural/agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to the City of Newberry agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers 04273-002-000, 04273-002-001, and 04273-002-002, consisting of approximately 15.53 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass the ordinance as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Brian?
Okay, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is on a second reading of a land use, future land use map change from Alachua County agriculture to City of Newberry agriculture, land previously annexed into the City of Newberry. There's location of subject parcel. And so we've been through all this already. Again, we're just not changing anything other than the designation from Alachua County to City of Newberry. And so staff's recommendation is to approve ordinance 2022-16 on second reading.
All right, second reading again. I have any questions? Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Maison. Second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously, again with Commissioner Farnsworth out of the room. And you, sir? Commissioner Coleman out of the room. Who did I say? Commissioner Coleman out of the room. You guys look so much alike. And young man, I believe you are now officially in the City of Newberry with all your zoning that needed?
Yes.
Yes. You have been great. You guys have come to all of these meetings. You got one more?
We got to do the rezoning.
Still got one more.
Got to redo the rezoning.
I specifically asked. They've gone through about 12. All right. Okay, next one is going to be quasi-judicial. Is that right? And we're on 11. Quasi-judicial. So in a second, I'm going to ask the attorney if he'll read that ordinance into the resolution. Before I do that, I need to explain the rules concerning quasi-judicial, and that's primarily when this board ceases to be legislative and they enter into quasi-judicial, they put on their robes, jacket, and they have to follow certain rules. And substantial and competent evidence must be met when they make a decision, and it shall state the following, and I quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts, and closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the clerk if you would please go ahead and swear everyone in, and then I'll do ex parte after that. So if you would please rise. If you're here to speak to any quasi-judicial tonight, we'll get you sworn in right now. Madam Clerk. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's do ex parte, and then I'll ask Scott to read it. You got anything, Commissioner Maison?
Do not.
Commissioner Martin?
No, sir.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
No.
Commissioner Clark?
No.
Commissioner Coleman?
None.
All right. Mr. Attorney, would you please read ordinance 2022-10/LDR 2205 into the record?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 40.32 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel numbers 02597-000-000 and 02597-001-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass the ordinance as read by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Now, as long as we're in quasi-judicial, tonight, I'm going to follow the following presentation order. If no one new enters the chamber, then I'm not going to read the presentation order over again. If someone new does, then I will go through it again. But first, we're going to hear from staff with their overview. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear the staff's report and recommendation, also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status on any of the quasi-judicials tonight, so that's going to move us to cross-examination, or public comment, I'm sorry. Anybody from the public who wishes to speak to each individual agenda item will have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll hear cross-examinations from the applicant and staff. The members of the decision-making body through the chair can ask questions of the staff, the applicant, and the participants. We'll hear final arguments from the applicant and staff. Then the city attorney will advise the decision-making bodies of applicable law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we'll deliberate the application. After deliberations, a vote will be taken to approve conditions, continue, or deny the application. And again, that's the presentation order we'll follow for the remaining quasi-judicials. Brian, go ahead and give us the staff overview. If the applicant doesn't want to make a presentation, slide right into that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's ordinance 2022-10. It's the subsequent rezoning after the future land use change that you just approved. It's the final step, second hearing. Again, there's a location map for parcels. Thank you. Last heard on March 28th by the commission, voted 4-0 to approve. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2022-10 on second reading.
Thank you. Public comment? Anybody here from the public who'd like to speak to this?
Thank you.
All right. Did you hear anything you'd like to cross-examine? All right. Then we'll go to the board. Member decision-making body, do you have any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'm assuming you don't want to make a final argument, Brian?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making body as applicable law?
Substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Substantial and competent.
All right, we'll have deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're still in. It's almost, yes. Still in quasi-judicial. Mr. Attorney, would you please read ordinance 2022-17/LDR 2206?
Good point.
All right.
There's an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 20.02 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. The tax parcel numbers are 01840-002-001, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2022-17 upon reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's ordinance 2022-17. Again, it's a rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture to City of Newberry Agricultural Zoning District on land previously annexed into the City of Newberry. And again, March 28th, City Commission voted 4-0 to approve the ordinance. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance on second reading.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do I have any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll go right on down to member decision making body. Do you have any questions? Not seeing none, we're going to go to deliberations, and if there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Maison, a second from Commissioner Martin. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the public have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're still in quasi-judicial. And we are at ordinance 2022-22/LDR 2207. Is that right?
Yes,
Scott,
sir.
would you please read that into the record for us?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 20.02 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the City of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. Tax parcel numbers are 04273-002-000, 04273-002-001, and 04273-002-002, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-22 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the final rezoning for previously annexed property on the agenda tonight. We'll be done at this point. Again, here's the property location over on the east side of the City of Newberry. Again, on March 28th, the City Commission voted 4-0 to approve the ordinance. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2022-22 on second reading.
Thank you, sir. Does any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we're going to move down to members' decision making body. Do you have any questions? Commissioner Martin.
This is the late George Wright's property, and interestingly enough, this kind of closes out the Dudley Farms, and he actually had got that property from the original family himself. So just fun fact.
Now, see there, Commissioner Martin beat you to it, Commissioner Maison.
Not really.
He got the fun fact in early.
That was tied into the agenda.
Oh, okay. All right, let's see, that's going to take us down to deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a vote. I am a motion. Trying to jump right to it. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Maison. Do I have any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Are there any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That takes us out of quasi-judicial and to our agenda items. Up first is Newberry's Urban Service Area Boundary. Brian,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
take it away.
So to recap, the urban services boundary, we discussed it a couple of times before. February 10th, we had the public workshop on whether or not to revise the existing urban services boundary. We had a lot of public comment, different maps were drawn. Staff came back and provided a copy of those maps to the commission for further review and consideration. Oh, thank you.
Come on, man.
In the office, she has hard candy she throws at me. So, anyway, so a series of 5 potential alternatives were developed from the workshops. February 28th, during a regularly held commission meeting, commission reviewed the public input maps and narrowed the list from 5 down to 3, eliminating maps 1 and 4. And so what you see before you are maps 2, 3, and 5. Commission directed staff to bring back the item with a short list of maps to a future meeting when the full commission was present. One of the reasons the decision wasn't made was because the commission at the time, the members of the commission that were seated felt that all 5 members of the commission should be there before any final decision was made. So we're down to the map number 2, roughly the same overall size as what's currently in the urban service area, maybe a little bit larger because it goes outside the bounds a little bit here and there. Map number 3 would be a fairly serious contraction, taking out a lot of the undeveloped areas. They're currently in the urban services area. And then input map 5 was basically just squaring off using parcels, parcel boundaries to square off as opposed to having a radius. And then adding, going north just a little bit up State Road 45 to capture a commercial property up there that we wanted to bring in and be into the urban services boundary so that someday we could extend water for fire flow to that location. And so additional options, of course, you can always leave it exactly as it is. You can modify the existing USA for clarity. One of the issues that came up was that how do you determine if a property is bisected by the urban services boundary line, how do you decide whether it's in or out? And right now it's up to the discretion of the commission. We could make a text modification that would clarify that to say that if hypothetically, theoretically, that if over 50% is in the boundary, it's in. If it's under that, then it's out. You could also say that if it's touched at all by it, it's in. That would be at the discretion of the commission. And staff's recommendation is just please discuss the proposed maps in front of you there and decide how you'd like to proceed further.
Okay, so I think it was Commissioner Martin wasn't here. We really wanted to have everybody in this conversation, but my memory of that conversation was that there was a lot of interest in 2 and 5, not as much interest in 3, but maybe things have changed since then. I would say 5 is really just addressing the parcel line, pretty much the same, but it's addressing the parcel lines, those kinds of things, right? 2 is sort of a little bit of a give and take, so you contract it a little bit, you push it out a little bit more. Or we can say we're all much better educated on the urban service area at this point, and we can leave it the way it is right now, and we'll understand the process that we would have to undergo if somebody comes and asks us to extend it. I say this every time we talk about the urban services line. Remember that we've all been talking about residential growth, but the urban services area covers residential and commercial. So if you take an area out of the USA and a commercial comes to you, well, then you've got to decide, do you want to put that area back in the USA? You guys still have control over this property, right? And you still have control over what it looks like, whether it's in or out, right? It just is one more hurdle that you have to go through. So I do believe that the USA sends a signal of these are the areas that we can conceive of development, we can conceive of working with you. So I think this is important for us to consider. But I also want to just keep reiterating, you guys still ultimately have control. And you can say, we don't want that in that area, even if it's inside the USA. Anybody been sleeping on this, want to make a pitch for one of these maps? I think just leave it alone. Commissioner Clark? Yeah.
Brian, on the urban services area, I know, and this actually down in your, you ain't got a map up on number 5. You did a great job with dissecting instead of the circle, and that was the big question was if it went through a piece of property. Mm-hmm. But if we vote tonight on either map, is this absolutely the map, or can we come to you? And I see a few things that I would like to adjust. Very, very small item, but I would like to see something adjusted that was drawn on the other maps that just got pulled back out of this one.
Mr. Mayor, if you had chose to adopt this one tonight, most likely it would not be the last bite at the apple you would have. We'd come back again, because one thing that needs to be adjusted here, we need to check to see if there are any unincorporated parcels in there, and we would just probably exclude them. Although
so we do have another bite.
I think what I'd like to
Okay.
get us to is to one of the maps. and
Well,
then
number
we'll
5
look
is
at-
in particular, is which one I'm looking at, Mr. Mayor.
And then
Fine-tune
let's
that.
do, can we tweak it?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, because there's a few things, but, number 5, what I personally am looking at compared to the other ones, and as long as you got another bite at the apple, I think it's, number 5's for me.
I think that's a good question. Right now, we want, do you want to kind of trade off? Do you want to square it off? Do you want to heavily constrict it, big? So we get narrowed down to a map, then we can come back and we can say, oh, well, I really like number 5, but I wish this parcel was in or out, right? And then we can have that level of detail. So I got 2 head nods to gravitate towards 5. Anybody else?
I'm 5.
You're on, Commissioner Maison's on 5. I got 3 on 5.
Well, here I got a question. So how difficult, Brian, how difficult would it be to change the urban service area if we decide later on we want to change it?
Process is, once you adopt a map that you prefer, then we would basically draw up the amendment. You'd approve it on first reading. It would then go to the state for state input because it is considered a large-scale land use amendment. And after state review, which
No, yeah, you can change, but it's 9 months, right?
You can
8 to 9 months.
change it, and what happens is, let's say you adopted, as an example, map 3, and we had a large industrial project that wanted to go into one of those undeveloped areas that's no longer in the urban services boundary. You could still do that, but we would have to then amend the urban services boundary along with changing future land use and zoning, and so it just adds a few months to the process. It's still amendable by the commission at any time, but because it goes for state review, that adds a couple of extra months to the overall process.
And just to speak to that, to me, the urban service area, it should be projected, right? We should be doing exactly what we're doing to grow smartly. We should be saying, these are the areas that we want to grow. This is what we want. I think when you look at communities who react to applications, say, oh, I like that. Let's redraw the urban services area to fit them. Oh, no, I like that. Let's redraw it to fit there. To me, that's a reactive community, not a proactive community. Now, we can't do anything about a commission 5 years from now changing this, but I think that we can say, look, we thought about it. We had workshops. We talked to people. And this is the size and the area of the city we want to see grow. So I mean, it's one thing if someone says, well, I need, my parcel is right on the line and I need the next parcel to be in, right? But to do massive changes to the USA because of an application, that's where I think you're getting into reactive waters. So I'd like to say whatever it is kind of where we actually really want it to be. And this body is going to pretty well leave it alone, except for some minor tweaks here or there. Commissioner Maison, you still got the floor.
So when I'm asking this question just for anyone that may want to consider map 3. So do we lose the vote? Do we lose the no if commercial wants to build outside the urban service area, like number 3? Or the yes?
Mr. Mayor, you don't lose the yes, you lose the timing element. And so if you have a large-scale development that is evaluating multiple sites, not just within your area, but your area and outside your area, and Site A can do it in 90 to 120 days, and because we have to make those extra amendments, we have 180 days plus, then that's just one more factor in their decision-making process. And if time is of the essence for that particular project, it could cause you to lose out on it.
And I would say what is an even more nuanced perspective, people say, well, I want a Walmart or I want a big box, right? Most of those places have such professional site planners that they may discount Newberry. Let's say you have 3 and they need that big quadrant out there, we might not even ever know that we were on their horizon because they'll look at our USA and say, well, they don't want us there, right? So
Absolutely
we may eliminate ourselves from a conversation because the very first thing they'll do is they'll pull up, well, where, what's their USA? Where can they get water? Where can they get sewer? That big 30,000 foot level. And so they may say, well, Newberry doesn't, their USA doesn't come. Let me go to the next 10 cities that I'm looking at. And so we may not even know what we lost out on without encompassing it. Farnsworth?
Yeah, one of the concerns I have is that we're going to be restricting the areas that commercial can actually come into the city, since we're on the east side of town going towards Gainesville. We kind of blocked things out from growing out that way with this urban with this map here. I don't see a real big commercial properties coming into these other areas. I think they'll be wanting to be on State Road 26. I mean, if I were a commercial property, that'd be where I would want to be. So I think we're kind of hindering ourselves by not including.
Which map are you looking at?
I'm looking at all three of them.
Oh.
Well, 202 is the point.
202 is but the point in our previous.
I was wanting to go, more east of that.
Okay.
And, I mean, that gives more commercial. Otherwise, we're just going to get a bunch of homes. We're not going to.
Well, remember, the other idea coming out of the visioning process was trying to keep that green space in between Jonesville now, not even Gainesville, Jonesville and us. So no homes can go outside, right, except for agricultural rural, right? 1 per 5 acres are these rural PD that we've been thinking about, right? So basically the USA is saying we don't want any substantial growth in between 202 and Jonesville. I definitely agree with you. I think if you open up the urban service area to Jonesville, that will be the area that fills in the fastest, right? But then you're going to have you'll have commercial buildings between Jonesville and Newberry. You'll lose that green space. I'm leaving one area coming into another field. So we're trying to create both of those at one time.
Well, otherwise, the way I see it is we're just going to be building a bunch of houses. We're just planning for a bunch of houses coming to the city and not planning for commercial properties coming to the city with these maps.
But USA covers residential and commercial.
I know,
right?
but you got to figure out where they wanting to put the commercial.
But you can, and that was my earlier comment. This board still decides, right? This board still says we see commercial. 10 acres back on north and south of 26 or 5 acres back, whatever it is, we don't see residential there, right? So you can't build commercial or residential in any substantive way outside of the USA. Inside of the USA, it still comes to this board, and this body says, this is where we see commercial, this is where we see residential. So extending the USA out would simply mean that you could also have more houses, right? Because now they could, if they ran water and sewer, they're in the USA, they can have more development, more residential development. So wherever you put the USA, you're creating the conversation, what do I see there? So by limiting it there, you're saying, at 202, you're saying, I don't see anything substantial but green space from 202 to Jonesville. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the only problem I have with that is I think we're going to be turning it into a bedroom community instead of a thriving city.
Commissioner Coleman?
It still comes to us, and before we approve anything. And number two, as long as I'm sitting up here, anything east of Newberry Road, if you're going to develop something, you better have commercial in the front. And that's it in a nutshell.
I mean, I think ultimately it comes to this board. And so I understand the concern about becoming a bedroom community. I think that you need the USA, and I think the USA and staff is free to disagree with me. I see it more as a commercial driver than a residential driver.
I do too.
And I think that right now, Newberry has more commercial projects in the pipeline than we've ever had in our history, and that's because of the commitment up here to businesses, commerce. There's always a relationship between businesses and rooftops, right? That has always existed. It just has to be that you have to have X number of people before you get certain businesses, right? Chick-fil-A is not going to look at us until we're 60,000 people, I don't know, 65, until the line wraps around Chick-fil-A 5 times. And I can still get out of there in 7 minutes, right? So, I mean, I think the USA is a commercial driver, and I think everything comes back to this board and y'all's ability to withstand someone an applicant and say, hey, I love your project, but let's take that to a different quadrant of town because over here, we really want to have whatever. We want to have more commercial. We want to have retail, those kinds of things.
Well, I'm just looking at the map now, the projects 4, 13, and 14 are all, they're all houses.
No, 13, all of those have massive amounts of commercial up along Newberry Road.
Newberry Road. So.
Right. And so part of the overlay
I know we
district.
got the 15, the acres there for,
Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
4 is the Ag Tech Park. That's all commercial. So there's the Hoffman parcel that's commercial,
yeah.
right? But both 13 and 14. 14 wraps completely around Hoffman, and that's all commercial. If you remember the overlay district presentation that CHW, is that right? Was able to do, they were able to give us an actual video aerial presentation of what that would look like, and then the step back process for the overlay district, so that, you know, the places that are right up against the road would have to build to this level of standard and
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
feel, and then as you go further back. But that whole section is all commercial all the way up to Canterbury. I'm sorry, Alachua County Equestrian, along the road, along 26.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, both projects 13 and 14 have approximately 20 acres each of frontage, like you said, plus the Hoffman property, which is all commercial, 18 acres of commercial. Item number 4 is 170 acres of all non-residential, that'd be the Ag Tech Park. Item number 9, the front 17 acres is commercial. And item number 8, the remainder of item number 8, which is all on the north side of Newberry Road, is also all basically a commercial component remaining. And so add it all up, and there's several 100,000 potential square feet of non-residential that would be along the primary corridor there.
So I've heard 3 commissioners say they want to move map 5 forward and start to really hone in on map 5 and maybe come back and just tweak map 5. The remaining 2 commissioners have strong feelings either way about any of the other maps. You willing to just move forward with 5? 5 kind of keeps it the same, follows parcel lines, pushes out up north of 27 where we know we already have some interest. Move on. Okay, so I got 3 head nods to move forward with map 5, 1 along for the ride. So Brian, bring map 5 back to us, and let's hone in on the parcels in particular. Let you guys do your work about what's incorporated, unincorporated areas, and incorporated areas, and let's just have another night where we talk just about map 5 and any particular. And if anybody has any comments or questions about that, any tweaks, let's go ahead and communicate that to staff before that meeting so that we can already have maps prepared and information prepared on any suggestions. Commissioner Martin?
I would only input that it seems like we're 90% of the way there. I feel comfortable if staff comes back with the revised map and an amendment at that time and skip a meeting, or save a meeting, I guess, however you want to say it.
I'm good with that,
if the rest
too.
is okay with that. I don't feel like we need to go over this again with
Right.
3 more different lines.
Okay. I'm good with that as well. So if you have any thoughts about map 5, things that you want to see, go ahead and get with staff ahead of time. Staff will track those changes and say, have some presentation about this are the reasons why, and these are the thoughts behind it. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Brian. All right, that takes us to item 15, emergency purchase requests. These phones are expensive and they age quickly. I mean, 20, 25 years. That's all we get out of them?
I know.
Come on.
They just
Come
don't make
on.
them like they used to. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, our phone system is old enough to drive now, and is no longer working. And some places drink. Mr. Mayor, I'm coming to you tonight requesting authorization to use our contingency funds. I do believe this is the first time we've ever officially requested to use contingency funds and use the contingency funds. But as you mentioned, the city's phone system has reached the end of its life. We had been hoping to limp the phone system along for a few more years until we moved into a new city hall. However, the phone system continues to fail regularly. In fact, last week it failed. It was offline for over a day. In December, the phone system citywide was offline for almost 4 days. Not only do these outages cost us the ability to communicate with our residents, they're also costing us lots of money in terms of having the phone system serviced and repaired. Each time we repair it, because the phone system is so old, the parts that they get for it are refurbished parts or hand-me-down parts or whatever parts they can find to fit our phone system. So the repairs are basically Band-Aids that aren't lasting. Each time we do get the phone system repaired, there's no guarantee of how much longer it'll last before it fails again. So we're requesting that the City Commission authorize us to use $21,500 to purchase a new phone system. We did get 3 quotes. This was the most reasonable of the quotes. The other quotes were $40,000 and $50,000 respectively. This quote is in the $20,000. It's a phone system that we've had demoed for city staff. City staff enjoys the phone system, likes the offerings and the benefits it has. It is used by other government agencies as well, so we know the phone system is robust enough to handle our call load. I'm happy to answer any other questions the City Commission has.
Okay, does you guys have any questions about the phone system?
I
Commissioner
got,
Mazan. Commissioner Mazan.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, Commissioner Clark.
I was just really, it was kind of a, if y'all need phones, I have a push button I just found in the shed, if that would help you guys out, and we don't need to.
At this point, we would take it because we have no clue if our phone system will work.
Well, I do have one I found, so.
We brought in some soup cans and nylon string.
Yeah.
We're gonna get this.
We looked into carrier pigeons and.
Commissioner Mazan.
Hey, Dallas. 2 questions.
Hey, Commissioner.
So you may or may not have, but was this discussed last budget season? If not, why?
Mr. Mayor, no, this item was not brought towards the City Commission during last budget item. It was discussed internally. As the commission knows, there's always a lot of competing needs in the budget. And the system at the time, we thought we could continue to use for a little bit longer. I had initially planned to ask for it to be funded in next fiscal year's budget. Unfortunately, the system is just not going to make it. We were trying to limp it along as long as possible, and we no longer can limp it along.
Can we protect this investment? Like, will we be able to use this phone system when the new city hall is built?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, that was a very important part of our conversations with our vendors, knowing that we're looking into moving into a new city hall, is the portability of this phone system to a new city hall. This phone system is a voice over internet phone system, so we will be able to easily just pick up these phones and move them to a new building. One of the other great benefits of these phones, because they're over the internet, if something should happen, and I don't know, we all go work from home again for 6 months for some unknown reason, these phones can actually be taken to an employee's house and plugged into their internet and will still work as the city's phone system. So there's a great deal of portability in this phone system.
Okay, Commissioner Martin, did you have a question?
How many phone stations are we talking about?
It's 54 phone stations.
54. They actually have a wire, or they're wireless right now, run on a Wi-Fi?
They're Ethernet. They plug into Ethernet ports.
You still pondering? No? Any other questions?
Just hit my brain. I remember what it is.
VoIP.
I actually, you know, I mean, we gotta have phones, obviously, but I just want to draw attention to the fact that this is the first time we've had to use a contingency fund, because I think that's an amazing feat. I think Commissioner Martin and I were the only ones who made that fight 8 years ago, that we needed a contingency fund. You've supported it, right?
Yeah.
But we had to fight to get it started. And the point I'm trying to make is that when we had that fight, the previous city manager, I'd asked, well, how much do we normally go over every year? And 50,000 was the average. So a different time, the budget averaged $50,000 over whatever was in the budget every single year. And so we said, well, let's just put a, but it was always something different, right? Something like this that we had that just sort of cropped up. And we've gone 7 years in a row, 8 years in a row now, putting that money aside in order to cover these kinds of things and not ever having to actually use it. And that's one of the reasons, certainly not the lion's share, that we've been able to build our reserves. We've been able to hit those marks. We've been able to score so well on our audits. So, and I appreciate this current commission for supporting that every single year and keeping that in the budget, because it was a fight. And the answer previously was always, well, we'll just transfer more funds out of the electric if we have to. And we said, no, we're gonna put it in the budget. We're gonna plan for it. You know, the rainy day fund. Commissioner Clark.
Dallas, is the VoIP phones, is the infrastructure already here for us to just plug and play, or do we have to, I mean, is this total everything package? They're gonna fix anything wrong? They're gonna install the phones? This is everything?
It is soup to nuts. We do have the infrastructure already. Our existing phone system uses Ethernet.
The Ethernet? Okay.
With the exception of this building. So we don't have to rewire buildings, but the guts and the brains of the phone system are all going to be new, completely changed out.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll have a motion to authorize the use of contingency funds for replacement of the phone system.
Motion.
What?
Motion.
Oh, motion from Commissioner Mason.
Motion to approve,
I heard
motion to
a whole
deny.
more. I got a second from Commissioner Clark. All right, motion from Commissioner Mason, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, and that brings us to comments. City Manager, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to AMI Day, just want to express to the commission, in a lot of years of being in my business, absolutely the most well-planned rollout of any initiative I've ever seen. We were supported by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different partner firms, and multiple people from each of those firms, but 7 different firms have partnered with us in some way or another to make that happen. FMPA, Quanta, our project manager, Liquid Creative, Census Core and Main, plus we were super well represented by our team. Our entire customer service team was here for the rollout. About half of our utility department. I mean, it wasn't just department heads, it was all of our key staff related to this. Really well run event, and I just want to applaud staff for putting together such a great event. Mr. Mayor, we also enjoyed, I've been dubbing it Ray Crone Day because it almost felt that way, but it was really just the on-field naming of Ray Crone Field. Ray is still super excited. He is super appreciative. It was a really nice event. The weather couldn't have been nicer. So great event for that. Mr. Mayor, we've really turned our focus for the next 2 weeks on Westfest. So we've got a great, probably the best soup to nuts musical lineup we've ever had. Really well planned event. It's on April 23rd, begins at 4 p.m. and lasts till 9. Free event, as always. Got food trucks, got fun for the kids, and a lot of great music. Asking the community and the commission's support and trying to help us get the word out. Just as the mayor said earlier, communicating to the public about what we're trying to do. It seems to be the hardest thing out there. So if you'll share social media posts, we've had a real active social media campaign, but we're really ramping up. We'd appreciate that. Just to let you know that it hasn't fallen off staff's radar, regional wastewater plan and the wastewater treatment plant expansion. That we have meetings with the city of Archer, not this week, but next, to further the regional concept, which is kind of a milestone for us. And then the wastewater treatment plant, we're going to be transitioning from planning phase to design phase very quickly. It keeps feeling like it's next meeting, but we have to get that happening in the spring sometime. So there's going to be a public hearing where we present our facilities plan to the commission and seek authorization to go the next step. That's coming up right around the corner. City Commission is going to be seeing our wrap-up of the planning phases for City Hall expansion, and kind of a similar milestone. May not be one meeting. None of these may be one meeting. Don't want the commission to feel that kind of pressure, but we'll be transitioning from a planning phase to a design phase. I believe the City Hall expansion could be at our very next meeting. State Road 26, a lot of conversations with FDOT. If you notice, they were around town today. I did meet with them to express some of your concerns. They're taking that back. They will communicate back with us on where they are. So as soon as we get to a point, I'd say they're 70% with design. Is that, Jamie's not here anymore, but I believe they reported to us that they were in the 70% design phase, and that they expect to wrap up design at the end of this year, which is about 6 months slower than it had been. But, you know, they have their whole list of reasons why that would be. They had planned on finishing design up in the spring of 22. Now they tell us their new target is December of 22, and they are slotted for construction to let that contract in 25, hoping to do it sooner if they get funding. So, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to give you a brief update on some of the projects that the commission has asked us to undertake. We're working on them all every day. We just don't often take enough time to report to you guys where we are on those. I'll try to do a better job during manager comments or just periodic email reports to the commission. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney? Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk? You want to announce the election one more time? Sounds better coming from you.
Will hold out. Our municipal election is tomorrow at the Mentally Norfleet Municipal Building, just adjacent to City Hall East. Polls will open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. And I hope that everyone will get out and support your candidate. I want to acknowledge our three candidates again for Commissioner Group 3, Mark Allen, Walt Boyer, and incumbent Monty Farnsworth. We appreciate you all, and thank you for having the interest in our community to step up and pursue a position of leadership. And I ask that we will continue through this process to practice civility and respect for each other. We're all in this together, and it's competitive, but we usually make a good impression on the media and others that are watching us. We set an example, and I hope that we will continue to do so. Immediately following the closing of the polls at 7 p.m., we will have a canvass board public meeting. Public is invited and encouraged to attend. We will canvass the vote by mail ballots, and after that process is completed, the results of the election will be taped to the door outside the front door, of the municipal building. We will wait for at least 2 days to make an official result, but it looks like we're going to pretty much know if we have at this point, we don't have any issues with any of our vote by mail ballots, so we'll just hope that continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well said. Newberry always does set a nice example of how democracy can work. All right, and that takes us to the commission. Commissioner Coleman, you got anything?
Yeah, Friday will be a year since I got home. And I know it's went by pretty, but thanks. Still doing a lot of rehab and things like that, but I just want to reiterate, I can't believe how much support I got out of this city. It's just, I mean, everybody. I mean, people carried me for rehab. I was in a wheelchair and then a walker and then a cane. This commission, all the staff, they were just great. And I'm very, very glad I'm still here because there's a lot of them that's not. So, and that's it, man.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations on that milestone. Well done. Commissioner Clark?
I just say, keep our troops in your prayers, those that are deployed around the world right now. We got a lot going on in this world, and we still live in the greatest country there is. God bless America.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth?
I'll just say we're glad you're still here too, Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Monty. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Maison?
Okay, so I have a couple businesses I want to bring to you, okay, by local. The first one is One Hope, or hopewine.com/event/125309. Y'all didn't write that down? 125309. My man. And that's Shivani Ross, okay, she does it online. Do you get it? Yeah. There you go. So if you guys are interested in wine, that's the website to go to. Second business, okay, is Beth Prime, excuse me, which she's not here right now. She was at the festival. Yep. So you know, you can get custom orders from Beth at PrimeCreativeStudios.com. She also has a Facebook and an Instagram, and those both can be looked up through PrimeCreativeStudios.com. Those are my two businesses there. I know you guys have been waiting so patiently for my jokes, and I'm going to give them to you. Did you say plural? I'm going to give them to you. You ready? I'll give this one to you. Okay. So what type of bumblebee, it's not understood. Hang on, make sure I get it right because I don't want to mess it up. What type of bumblebee can't make up its mind?
Bumblebee. I like his answer.
A maybe. That was good. Okay, I know my time is running out. One more. What did one toilet say to the other? You look a bit flushed. I don't know where I come up with them.
I want to say thank you to the Main Street folks, to the city staff, to the temple out on 27. We had so much going on April 9th, this last Saturday, and it was an amazing day in Newberry. I know how much work it takes to put all that stuff on, so everybody who was involved, the garden club had their plant sale. It was great. I still got some to put in the ground. So just, Mike, give our thanks to everybody, because I know our team made everything look great. And I can't say it any better than the clerk did about the election tomorrow, so I'll cross that one off. I have two things. Newberry's prom is this upcoming weekend, so it'll be this Saturday. So parents at home, we know we talk to our kids all the time about making good decisions. Prom is definitely one of those nights where we want to reiterate some of those lessons. Sometimes it's worth a phone call to, the party buses and the limousines, just to make sure you know who they've got and what services those companies are providing. Having conversations about what happens after prom. The school does a great job of supervising during prom, but what happens after prom is up to you and your child. So now is a great time to have those conversations. We're going to be right here in Newberry, so there's really no reason for anybody to be leaving. So just wanted to let you know, and hopefully everybody who goes home on Friday shows up to school on Monday. I had an interesting conversation with a county commissioner recently about the infrastructure tax that the county is going after. And I'm not going to get into the infrastructure tax, but one thing came out of that conversation, and she wanted to know, well, even if the county did give the municipalities some say or a seat at the table in how the counties spend their money and prioritize county roads within municipalities, how would municipalities go about prioritizing those roads? What criteria would we use? And I think that that's a fair question to ask, because I think roads are one of those things that's kind of reactive. Someone dies on a road and all of a sudden we want to spend $10 million to fix that road. 337 has been at the top of our conversations because so many people have died on 337. But we talk about 15th, we talk about 30th, right? You could go down the list. So what I think that we should do, and I think that it might set a trend for other municipalities, it would certainly help in our conversations with the county, is by resolution prioritize those roads. So I'd like to ask staff to help us come up with a top 3 list of roads that are county roads that are in the city of Newberry, that if the county either gets the infrastructure passed or just decides to spend some of their already existing tax base fixing roads, we can say to them, here, by resolution, we've got 1, 2, 3. And these are the 3 roads that we think are the absolute worst in the city of Newberry that belong to the county, and we have spoken. So it would be great if that motion, that resolution to prioritize the 3 could be unanimous, because I think that that's what they're looking for. We fixed this road because you said you needed it fixed, and then y'all have elections, somebody else says, well, no, I think you should have spent it over here. So I'd like to have as much conversation as we need to get to, and I'm not saying it has to be 1, 2, 3, I think it would help, but at least if we could say these are our top 3, and these are the reasons why in the resolution, that we can hand it to them. I think that would get us in a better place to have this conversation. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Mr. Mayor, instead of spending a lot of money researching that, the county did a pretty comprehensive research on all the roads in the area previously, before they were trying to pass the gas tax or the road tax. I was wondering if we could possibly just use those roads they already set up as high priority for this area instead of...
I would love to use that list, but the county staff is claiming that list doesn't exist anymore. And is telling the county commission that list doesn't exist anymore.
And 337 went from like the top
right. So
way down here somewhere.
Part of the conversation with that commissioner was reiterating that they did all this work in 2014. I'm sure they spent $100,000 or $200,000 paying somebody to make that list, prioritize it, and 337 was number 5 on that list, and 2 of the projects under it had been completed, and the commissioner... 235? I don't think 235 got done. So, but she said to me, and this is a quote, she said, you need to let that go. That's not getting anywhere. No one can find that list. That's not true. There's never been a list made. So, and we've sent her the list twice. I've sent her the spreadsheets. I've sent her the PowerPoint slides. I can send her the video of Lee Pinkinson making the motion, because he was still a commissioner in 2014. I sat on the dais and listened to the presentation myself. Back to your original point, though, I'm not seeing us spending a lot of money here. I think that we can have a conversation. I think we can get staff's opinion. Mike, you want to jump in here?
Mr. Mayor, I think that's an excellent idea, and I think it just carries the ball a little bit further than an idea the commission had last year. As a way of engaging the county commission during their budget process, the commission adopted a resolution requesting that they develop a rural road resurfacing program and fund it to put County Road 337 at the top of the list. So I think we should be consistent. I recommend that we be consistent and include those elements in the resolution as well. I think that the road list of county roads in our jurisdiction is very well established. We've got that close at hand. We can bring that back for the commission's consideration. I think from our perspective, when we go to weighting roads, that probably the most important things are the number of trips that are occurring on a road, and that information is mostly available to us already. And safety, whether it's more perceived and anecdotal or realistic. I think the types of accidents we're seeing on County Road 235, see at the caution light at 78th, where my wife was in an accident a few weeks ago. We know that that's a pretty regular place for accidents. There's a car parked there right now that got tore up last week. And then 337, of course, we've seen a lot of accidents, very different than, say, Southwest 30th Street, which definitely needs improvement, and portion of it is county road, but we're not really having a lot of accidents as a result. So we can bring that information back to the commission with the scoring, or at least the categories for consideration. I think the commission would quickly come to consensus on what their top 3 or their top 5 road projects would be. I think it's a fantastic idea, and we'll strive to get it on the commission for the 25th. If not, it'll be on the meeting for the 9th of May.
Okay, I appreciate, and I think that's a great idea. I remembered us passing the resolution about the rural roads, and I had forgotten that in that resolution, we identified 337. So I think that consistency is important. But again, I think that in 5 minutes, we could say 15, 30, or 337, 235. You know, these are the ones now. You know, how would we prioritize them from our end if it was our decision to make? But it's like the Twilight Zone, talking about what happened and what didn't happen in the past.
Well,
Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah, I'm going to tell Commissioner Clark that I got to quit going over to his place because it's on Southwest 30th. I'm having to rewash my truck. The front end's out of line. So I would make Southwest 30th number 1 to pave.
And I think that could be part of the conversation. Are we talking about resurfacing? Are we talking about a graded road? You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think some could be chip sealed, and 15th's terrible. We could get a list of that quick.
Yeah, very quick.
15th's terrible.
I'm going to shift gears on you just slightly, but I'm staying on roads. I'm going to bring up to the Alachua County League of Cities the infrastructure tax and ask them, because the BOCC believes that we already had a conversation with them and that we approved the infrastructure tax. We gave them a head nod. So if you remember, we had a joint meeting at Easton a year or so ago. And this was when they were, in my memory, this was when the BOCC was considering putting a ballot initiative forward. And they said, we're considering it. We're thinking about tying it to the wild spaces. What do you guys think? Do you have any comments? And we had some really basic 20,000 foot comments. We did say, and I remember this, we said we would listen to you if you wanted to come out and make presentations and engage in the conversation. So we said we would engage in the conversation. They perceived that as us agreeing to the infrastructure tax. So right now, they are communicating to all of Alachua County that all 9 municipalities are on board with the infrastructure tax and are asking for it. And I think that we've just asked our staff to go and find out the details of the infrastructure tax and come make presentations to us so that we can have an informed opinion about what they're asking for, so we can get educated and learn about it. But and I was very clear that in my memory, there was never a point in time where any of us agreed to the infrastructure tax. And I know of 2 cities that I think right now are at least lukewarm, if not just against the infrastructure tax. Commissioner Martin.
There is absolutely no way that this commission, on a conversation level, would ever agree to a tax just off the cuff. And it's very convenient that they hear that, but then they don't hear anything about single-member districts, for instance. So the memory recall is completely selective, and that was about a year ago because it was the first or second meeting after Commissioner Coleman came back, because I remember then Chairman Cornell stating very emphatically that he was so happy to see Commissioner Coleman back. I digress.
Well, I just want y'all to, because you may hear from the county commission, you may hear commercials, you may hear advertisements that all 9 municipalities are in favor of it. And that's the moment that they're pointing to, is when they introduced the concept and they asked us if we'd be willing to talk about it, and we said we'd be willing to talk about it.
Those will be educational commercials or advocacy
I'm
wrapped
sure.
in educational commercials.
So
I
I'm going to have
digress,
that.
right?
I'm going to have that conversation
Doing a
with
good
the League of
job.
Cities, and see. I really want to support some effort to address our roads. I think we all want to support some effort to address our roads. I don't want anyone to get the idea that we don't want to work together to address our roads. I think the conversation is about what's the best mechanism and way to go about addressing our
If we're
roads.
using wild spaces fund, quit buying land.
Well, and the one suggestion that I can actually remember from that night, because if you remember, that was the joint meeting that kind of got hijacked by High Springs.
Right.
And the only suggestion, maybe because I made it, was I said, why don't you just open up the things that Wild Spaces money can be used on? So leave the tax alone, but broaden the scope.
Right.
So that cities that want to use their Wild Spaces money on roads could use that, and that way it would stay the same. But that one did not didn't make it into the ballot. So right now, the counties, she said the county is planning on using 70% for roads and 30% for affordable housing. There's a $6 million grant to Gainesville. There's another $6 million off the top that the other 8, actually still all 9 could go after if we wanted to match our monies together. But the numbers get really vague. And if you were here in 2014 when they tried this the first time, they made an in-depth presentation. They had very clear projected numbers for Newberry. They had project lists. So when they said that a year ago, that was in my mind of what was going to happen. And I mean, since that meeting, it was kind of radio silent until I saw someone on Facebook said that it was on the ballot. And I thought they were just wrong, that the conversation was progressing, but no, it's decided, it's voted on. So we're going to need that presentation. I asked her to make that presentation to the Alachua County League of Cities, to come out here and make it to us, so that at least when people are asking us if what's going on, we would have some data. We'd have some information. And that does it for my comments. Public comments. Public comments. If there are no public comments, Commissioner Maison.
Real quick, I love our staff. 4th Ave looks really good if you haven't driven by there. The sidewalk for the kids over there by Oakview Middle School, it looks great.
It's in there.
40 yards of concrete
Yep.
laid today.
Like over half of it laid out, and it looks phenomenal. So that's a good thing.
You
Thanks to the
missed your
staff.
shot to put your
together.
initials in it.
I'll do it tonight.
Commissioner Farnsworth was campaigning over there, put his handprints in there. If nothing else, we are adjourned.